is a presentation of Sertoba Media and Comey Media Incorporated. And the MVPs change again. Oh boy. You're watching or listening to Total Football Talk. Welcome to Total Football Talk. Hard-hitting, grind action news and fun the way you like it. But there is one more thing I got to do. There we go. I am one half of this show, one of the co-hosts of this program, Cole Johnson, a.k.a. the Mad Scientist and EP Extraordinaire, and I am joined, as always, by the other co-host of this program, Mr. D. Will in the evening, Mr. Commander's Grind Report, the man who is in charge of the D. Willie Bucks. D. Willie or Drew Willingham. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing great. Hope you had a great holiday season. Speaking of Willie Bucks, I don't even know what to call this unit right here. This king size Kit Kat bar that I got for Christmas. Definitely had a great one. Hope you guys all out there had a great holiday as well.
Yeah, I did, and we definitely hope that you all had a wonderful holiday. And as now we are in the season of going toward New Year's, looks like so is NFL. Let's get to the opening drive.
All right, let's go. We got trips right at 42, 989 on two. Ready? Great.
And we start. Oh man. Okay. All right. Total transparency here. Was I really excited about any of these games Thursday or Saturday? Maybe one of them. But for Thursday, you had the Rams hosting the Saints. And, of course, this would determine who would probably grab onto maybe the 6 or 7 seed in the NFC. And, well, it looks like the Saints' chances are about to get dimmer and dimmer, because they lost and took it on the chin to the Rams 30-22. And really, the game wasn't as close as the final score indicated. Matthew Stafford, 24-34, 328 yards and 2 touchdowns. Beautiful performance from him. Puka Nacua, who has become a really good, reliable weapon for Stafford. 9 receptions, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Demarcus Robertson chipped in with 6 receptions and 82 yards and a touchdown himself. Kyron Williams, who has become a big, important cog in that Rams offense, 22 carries, under 4 yards and a touchdown. And for a losing cause, Derek Carr, 27-40, 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Rather decent for him. And Chris Olave pulled down 9 receptions on 423 yards. All right, your thoughts on the game with the Saints go down to 7-8 and the Rams improve to 8-7?
Rams barely pulled it off, looks like, by the score, but watching throughout the entirety of this game, they had this game in hand until the Saints started plugging away again at the fourth quarter, as the Rams were up 30-7 at one point. So you can't really get that much excited about this Rams victory, as they almost gave it away towards the end. But at the same time, the 7-8 Saints are 7-8 for a reason, as, like I said, they were down 30-7 at that one point. So they're lucky to get back as close as they were in the score. But at the end of the day, the Rams pulled it out.
Yeah. And they now, I think they're in the 6th seed position, I believe. So hopefully they can hold on. As for the Saints, I think now they just have to hope and pray that they get a shot at the NFC South crown. Otherwise, forget it. The Steelers and the Bengals. $34-11 was the final score. The Steelers in the capture bottle, Acrisure, just simply dispatched of the Bengals like they were just simple trash on the street. 8 thumbs himself, or Mason Rudolph, 17 of 27, 290 yards, 2 touchdowns. This isn't quite possibly. This is the best NFL game he has ever had. But of course, it helped because 4 of those passes he threw to George Pickens got up 195 of those 290 yards and both those touchdowns. So good job, George Pickens. On the losing end, Jake Browning, he threw for 335 yards. I don't even want to tell you what the throwing percentage was. He got a touchdown, but he threw 2 picks. T. Higgins on his way back, looking pretty good. 5 receptions, 140 yards and a touchdown, but it just simply was not enough. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, like you said, basically Mason Rudolph had his best game of his career. And, to some, quarterbacks out there, it wouldn't even be close to their best game of the year because they have definitely put up far better, superior numbers than this. But when it comes to this, I think the biggest thing, kind of like in another game we'll get to here in a little bit that happened yesterday, I think the turnovers is definitely what killed the Bengals, especially with those 3 interceptions right there. But what can you expect out of a second string quarterback?
Right.
All I can say is good on the Steelers for finally getting a victory, I guess, when it comes to helping their culture out a little bit, because they have definitely, even though they're 8-7, culturally they look like a 3-11 team, or a 3-12 team right now. Going into the remaining weeks of the season, they look like what the Patriots should be for their record, and the Patriots actually look like the 8-7 team that the Steelers are in most cases.
Yeah, I agree. And who knew? So if they play back-to-back two-win teams, they look horrible, but they play a team that they really want to beat. They are invested in the game. Interesting. But in a game of the week candidate, I had to admit, this was actually a pretty good game. The Chargers hosted the Bills. Of course, the Chargers are out. And, of course, thank you, Brandon Staley, you're gone too. Unfortunately, so is Justin Herbert. He's gone for the year with a fractured finger. But the Chargers put forth a good fight to the Bills. But they fell 24-22 thanks to the Bills' defense putting Easton Stick on the ground 5 times. Ed Oliver responsible for 2 of those 5 sacks. Josh Allen, efficient. 15-21, 237 yards, a touchdown, but he did throw a pick. Gabe Davis, 4 receptions, 130 yards and a touchdown, and the aforementioned Easton Stick, although being put on the turf 5 times, pretty good. 23-33 for 215 yards. Your thoughts on this game, sir?
Definitely was a close one, and I think having Brandon Staley out of there definitely made a big difference when it came to the overall play calling of this.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this situation right here, I don't know if we can get excited for that, or this Bills team definitely needs to address some things during the offseason. If this 5-10 or 5-9 team, no, they were 4-10 coming into this. No, 5-9 team coming into this game. Yeah, if this 5-9 team can come in here and they barely squeak one out against that team, just goes to show that if the Bills do get to the playoffs, they actually will not be making much noise this year if they can be losing, barely squeaking wins out like they did against this team.
And I think if they were to operate offensively the way they did against this game, I 100% agree with you. I think they won't go too far, but they need to rely a little more on their running offense like they did when they shellacked the Cowboys. But a win's a win, although that's going to be harder to say this time next month. Right. To the Sunday slate of games, let's start with one of the 1 o'clock affairs. That right there was the Colts as they just simply slid on down the streets of Atlanta looking like a dumpster on fire in their 29-10 thumping. Taylor Heineke person. I don't know if you're familiar with the quarterback. I don't know if you've ever seen play. Of course, saying that facetiously. 23 of 33, 29 yards and a touchdown. The Falcons offense helped out Heineke with 177 yards on the ground. And the man you call Uncle Rico, Gardner Minshew, 20 and 37, 21 yards and an interception. Unfortunately, he wasn't a difference maker in this game, and neither was their run offense as well. Your thoughts, sir?
Looking at this game right here, I was happy for Taylor Heineke to get in there and to make a little noise. But it definitely just goes to show how the Colts were definitely not going to make any noise in the playoffs this year or even get there at this point, looking at the way that this loss was to the Falcons. Artie Smith may have just saved his job. A very decent chance that he did, but we'll see during this offseason. That's what some of the rumblings are in the background.
Yeah.
But good on Taylor Heineke. Happy to see him get this victory against the Colts.
Yeah. And I've heard the same scuttlebutt that this game may have saved his job. I'm thinking there's probably more important games that he still has to play and the Falcons still have yet to play that would probably be able to save his job a little stronger than this one. However, good performance by the team all around. As for the Colts, well, they're not out of it, but the chances don't look good, even if they do make the playoffs. All right, from the A, about three and a half hours to the northwest to Nashville, where the Titans host the Seahawks. The Titans, of course, are already packing for the winner. The Seahawks are struggling for a playoff spot. Nip and tuck game, another game of the week candidate, but the Seahawks decided to wake up in the fourth quarter and dispatch the Titans 20-17. The defense of the Seahawks pretty much was to me, show. 6 sacks on the day, putting Ryan Tannehill, who was in place of Will Levis, was put to the turf. Boye Mafe gave you 2 of those 6 sacks. Geno Smith returning 25 of 36, 27 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Tyler Lockett gave you 81 yards on 8 receptions. For the losing end, Ryan Tannehill, efficient, but definitely not impressive. 18 of 26, 152 yards. Derrick Henry, who did his best to try to put the team on his back and give them a W. 19 carries, 88 yards, a touchdown, a reception for 11 yards, and 1 of 1 for 12 yards and a touchdown pass. Your thoughts, sir? I think what he's saying is the Titans took a nasty.
Stole the words right out of my mouth as Cole Johnson played that ever so beautifully. But at the same time, in what could have been Derrick Henry's final Christmas Day home game for the Titans, he had a pretty good game. Like you said, 88 yards and a touchdown. And it wasn't until, when we were 3 minutes inside with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, thinking, the Titans could take this game. But then Geno Smith led that great drive, that final drive. That Colby Parkinson touchdown was a very physical touchdown. It was a very physical 5 yards for him to get for that touchdown. Good on the Seahawks. Good on Pete Carroll as they continue to move forward in a positive direction here. But when it comes to these Titans team, regardless if you want to say if Ryan Tannehill had a decent game, he's still Ryan Tannehill. They got to get him out of there after the season.
Yeah, he just not mesh with that team at all. And I think his time in the NFL is done. And I'm not saying it because I'm a Texas fan and I'm hating on the Titans. I'm just looking straight up eyes. It just doesn't look good on the field anymore. Mick, who's a huge Seahawks fan, he says, how about them Hawks? Well, those Hawks, they now are in playoff position. So they're looking good right now. Now, if they can win out, they'll be good. But hopefully they can continue on that stretch. Delete! I'm going to get to the other comment that would put Matt Hardy onto the screen later. Oh, my gosh. But thank you, Mick, for coming. Appreciate you, man. Now, another candidate for Game of the Week found us a competition between the Vikings hosting the Lions. Of course, the Vikings were hoping to win out and hope that the Lions could lose out, and they could have contributed to that because They played the Lions 2 out of the last 3 weeks. The Vikings failed, and they lost 30-24. It was back and forth a bit, but the Lions, I think they had some control of it in the second quarter, but they lost it a little bit in the third and regained it in the fourth. Jared Goff, a little too much throwing to my liking, 30 of 40, 257 yards and a touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who of course is becoming the number one target for Goff, 12 receptions, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, who looks like he is picking up more of the slack for the Lions' share, and he's looking really good carrying the rock. 15 carries, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 receptions, 20 yards. He did lose a fumble, though. The Lions' offense, out of the 80 yards of Gibbs, he contributed 80 of the 143 rushing yards. And the Lions' defense, 4 sacks with the Fayatu Melifonwu, with 2 of those 4 sacks, and 4 picks, with Kirby Joseph giving you 2 of them. And I did say 4 picks. On the other end, Nick Mullins, 22 of 36, 411 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really impressive. The 4 picks is not. Justin Jefferson coming back strong, building himself back up. 6 receptions, 141 yards to the touchdown. And KJ Osborne, 5 receptions, 95 yards, with the other Nick Mullins touchdown receiving. Your thoughts on the Lions clinching the NFC North?
Happy for the Lions, but at the same time, you need to be concerned when you look into their possible playoff run with the fact that the Vikings and a backup quarterback, well, I guess third or fourth string, whatever you want to say that he is, had 4 interceptions and only lost by 6 points. The Lions need to address some things because they need to take advantage of these turnovers a little bit better. If you're going to have 4 turnovers but only win by 6 points, it's not looking good for your playoff run for the Lions. I like the Lions. I like Man Campbell's spirit, but at the same time, you're going to have to find a way to capitalize on that within the next 2 weeks before the playoffs start.
All I know is I think I'm smelling issues with their red zone offense. But yeah, I agree with you. They have to take more advantage of having that many amount of takeaways. If you can get them, capitalize on it and make that opponent pay, but they didn't. But thankfully they won. And here is another game of the week candidate that Mickey basically had to say, morning, my brothers, Drew, your Commanders still suck. The Commanders went down in the Meadowlands, but not to the Giants, to the Jets this time, 30-28. However, the Commanders could not have played a worse first half and still come back and give you a 28-27 lead, which unfortunately they could not hold with the last drive by the Jets. Breece Hall, 20 carries, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, 12 receptions, and 96 yards. The Jets offense, of the 95 yards that Breece Hall put forth on the ground, they gave you 164 on the ground. Trevor Siemian, yes, you heard me correctly, Trevor Siemian, horrible. 27-49, 217 yards, a touchdown and a pick. But I give credit to where it's due. The Commanders offense was buoyed by Jacob Brissett, filling in for Sam Howell, because he was 6 of 22 for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns before he got pulled. Your thoughts, sir?
You know, when it comes to this team right here, I've said it enough about the offensive line, but at the same time, you know, you're going to need, if you're going to keep the offensive line the way that it is, the Commanders are going to have to get a younger style quarterback in the fashion of Jacoby Brissett, who is more mobile, because that's what they worked with in Kansas City. Obviously, Sam Howell is not going to be the guy to work within that offense, because when you have those type of numbers and with some of these games that they have lost pretty decisively over this tenure, they either need to beef up the offensive line to give him the amount of time to do the things that he does within the style that he plays, or they're going to have to go to a younger version of Jacoby Brissett, because Jacoby Brissett's 31 years old. They might get another 5 decent years out of him, but then what are you going to do after that? You need to get somebody that's young enough to be able to withstand that offense and to continue to go forward, which I'll discuss more on the Commanders Gridiron Report on Thursday afternoon. I'm going to have a special Thursday afternoon episode this week because Christmas was Monday. But when it comes to this team right here, I still believe in Sam Howell, but unless they make some upgrades on their offensive line to give him a little bit more time, that's what he's going to need to be successful in some of these games that he's won. But unless you go with the Jacoby Brissett style quarterback, that's the only way this team's going to have success because, there was bad decision making on Sam Howell. But when you watch that game, it wasn't just like he was making bad plays. He just did not have enough time to make plays back there. Then when you see Jacoby Brissett get in there, it's like two totally different offenses. Right. Yes, they gave him slightly more time than Sam Howell had, but he also, his instincts in the way that his playing style is, he can afford to have less time in the pocket because he's not really a pocket quarterback.
Right.
So that's where I saw the differences between the two. But I'll talk more about that on Thursday's episode of Commander's Gridiron Report. But good on Jacoby for bringing it back to only lose by 2 points. It definitely put the pressure on the Jets there towards the end. But at the end of the day, the field goal came in at the last second in the closing seconds to give them that 2-point victory over the Commanders.
Yeah. And I agree. I think the Commanders, if they're going to have Powell be the leader of this team going forward, and they need more maulers in front of them instead of a more athletic line, which that would do best for someone like a Jacoby Brissett or a type of quarterback like him. But yeah, the team fought. Unfortunately, they fell short. All right, another game of the week candidate, and I can't believe I'm actually saying this, considering I'm saying this about a game that involves the Carolina Panthers. But the Packers and the Panthers decided to have defense be somewhat optional. But the Packers eventually won the game 33-30. The Packers offense gave you 162 yards on the ground. Aaron Jones giving you 127 of them on 21 carries. He also gave you a reception for 8 yards. Jordan Love. 17-28, 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. Preston Smith for the Packers, he gave you a sack and a half. And on the other side, Bryce Young, 23 of 36, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. Probably one of the best stat lines for him this year. And of course, it helped that you had two receivers that almost gave him each 100 yards. DJ Chark, who I'm accustomed to hearing this name for the Jaguars, not for the Panthers. 6 receptions, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. Both of them, of course, both the touchdowns that Bryce Young threw. And Adam Thielen. Yes, an Adam Thielen sighting. 6 receptions and 94 yards. Your thoughts on this game?
The fact that you actually have your quarterback for the Panthers showing up, Bryce Young, with 300 yards, definitely helped keep them in this game. But I think we all knew at the beginning of this game the Packers are going to win. Didn't think it was going to be as close, but like you said, it was a good defensive battle through and through for both teams. On the through and through for the overall most point, they still gave up over 30 points per team. Right. But having Adam Thielen show up, having things clicking on decent cylinders for the Panthers, gave us this type of close game that we saw this past weekend. So good on the Panthers. Gives you some hope, but it also gives you more hope on the Packers and what we've been hearing for the hype on Jordan Love.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jordan Love may not be a difference maker in terms of he may not wow you like an Aaron Rodgers, and he may not be the gunslinger like a Brett Favre, but it looks like he's coming into his own, and hopefully he does find his way. Now, will the Packers go into the playoffs? We'll see. And then there's my Texans. Bowl that ball.
I'm glad the Commanders didn't get that. For the first time in a while.
That's a good one. Oh my gosh. Well, the final score of their home game against the Browns, they lost 36-22, and the game was not even that close. I will get to the star of the game and probably star of the week later, but Joe Flacco looked like he's stabilizing that offense. 27-42, 368 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not stellar stats, but good stats to the point where the defense doesn't have to carry all the weight. So Darius Smith on the other side gave you 2 sacks for the Browns. The Texans offense, 178 passing yards as Davis Mills replaced Case Keenum. But of course, the star of the game was Amari Cooper, who pulled down 11 passes for a franchise record 265 yards and 2 of the 3 touchdowns Flacco threw. Your thoughts on this game, sir?
I mean, looking at the fact that Joe Flacco had 2 interceptions and they still won by 2 possessions, just goes to show you how great of a defense this Browns team has. They are going to be a team that makes noise if they make this playoff run possible within these last 2 weeks. Got some high hopes on the Browns. Don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl, but I got a really good feeling that if they continue to play and carry this momentum over this next 2 weeks, they're going to be able to make some noise in the first round, possibly, if this Chiefs team keeps playing the way that they do, the Browns might be able to get to the AFC Championship game. Don't have any hopes for getting any further than that, but it would be cool to see something that happened over 35 years ago when the Browns were last in the AFC Championship happen again this year. And on the back of Joe Flacco, again, don't think they're going to go any further than that, but it would be a pretty cool story to see after everything they've been through.
In the PSFF, we see you, Stevie K. Now I'm having a jingle in my head. Doom, 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 doom. Go, Pack, go. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you, my man. I agree with your assessment of the Browns. And even though the score is 22, one of those touchdowns came on a 98-yard kickoff return by Dameon Pierce. So that defense of the Browns only gave up 14 points.
Yeah.
This is not a defense to play with.
No.
And you gotta dot all your I's, cross all your T's, and you got to be as efficient as you possibly can, because the Browns want to make the game as ugly for you as possible. And kudos to you, Browns. Your defense made the game extremely ugly for the Texans, because they were looking like as a good defense should. So I can't hate on them. I can't hate them at all. But I agree with you. Will they make the Super Bowl? I don't think so. Can they make a good playoff run? I think so. And then they will put fear in the hearts of a couple of high-seeded AFC contenders. So, yeah, I agree with you there. All right. Now for the late Sunday effect. Oh, good Lord. The Jacksonville Jaguars. We'll talk about them in the next segment. I don't know what you call what they were doing. 30-12 is the final score. They go to Raymond James and they just stink up the joint. Conversely, the Buccaneers looked absolutely beautiful. And leading that charge, Baker Mayfield, 26-35, 283 yards and 2 touchdowns. He could probably play maybe just a smidge better, but not much. Mike Evans, 7 receptions, 86 yards, and a couple of touchdowns. Just Mr. Steady and reliable. But the Bucs defense, not to be outdone, 4 sacks with Yaya Diaby, giving you a sack and a half. They also chipped in with 2 interceptions and 2 fumble recoveries, as they made Trevor Lawrence day horrible. 17-29, 211 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks, and a lost fumble, and a hurt shoulder to boot. My brother. Evan Ingram, he had a pretty good day with Lawrence and with Better coming in. 10 receptions, 95 yards, but he did have a fumble that he lost. And Calvin Ridley, 6 receptions, 90 yards, and 1 touchdown from each of the quarterbacks that threw it to him. Your thoughts on this rout of the Bucs to the Jags?
You know, besides Mike Evans, Chris Godwin was definitely a heavy hand in that victory for the Bucs, because he chewed up a lot of yards for them on the receiving corps. Bunker Stayfield, can't really call him that this week, as he definitely helped lead the Bucs to a decent victory over this Jags team. But I think it speaks more on how poorly the Jags played, as well as Trevor Lawrence, because those 2 interceptions definitely cost this team in this game right here, because for you to only muster up 12 points, and the Tampa Bay defense is not what they were 3 to 4 years ago, speaks very high volumes on the trajectory of where this Jaguars team's going this season. Don't have high hopes for them for the rest of this year, and neither should anybody in Duval County.
Agreed. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about them, but oh my gosh, the fall is just horrible for them. But as for the Bucks, although they walk out of Raymond James with the same record, the Bucks looks like they are trending upward. And we'll talk about them, of course, in the 2-minute drill too. But wow, two teams with the same record and they're going in two opposite directions. Ooh. Just because of the two teams. Okay, show of hands. If you don't reside in Phoenix, you don't reside in Chicago, who watched the game between the Cardinals and the Bears?
I did because it was on NFL Red Zone.
Okay, I'm sorry. If you don't live in Phoenix, you don't live in Chicago, and you're not a hardcore football fan like we are. 27-16, the Bears, they just toyed with the Cardinals. The Bears offense, they gave you 250 yards on the ground, with Khalil Herbert giving you 112 of those on 20 carries and a touchdown. Justin Fields gave you 97 more on the ground on 9 carries and a touchdown running. Also passing 15 to 27, 170 yards and a passing touchdown. He also threw a pick. DJ Moore gave you 107 yards and 4 receptions. And Kyler Murray on the other side of the coin, 24 of 38, 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. But you forget that he was not on the field. You thought he was playing Call of Duty. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, Justin Fields didn't do anything spectacular here, but the Bears defense definitely did step up to help keep the Cardinals to only scoring 16 points here. You know, Kyler Murray did throw for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. But those 14 incompletions definitely speak high volumes when you look at this game. And when watching it, biggest things I saw was the pressure that the up front defense, the defensive front was giving on the Cardinals front. So when you look at those two right there going head to head right there, that's what I saw when looking at this game right here. Good on the defensive line for the Cardinals, bad on the offensive line. No, good on the defensive line for the Bears, bad on the Cardinals offensive line when you look at the two right there. And what I saw, have to give credit for that trade they made for Montez Sweat. Stats say he was quiet, but when you watch the game, he was actually highly active and a very vital part in why they got this win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And although this might be a case of too little too late, the Bears look like they're showing some fight and looks like they want to have Justin Fields be a part of this team. But don't think that you're out of the woods yet, Bears. It's the Cardinals. To the Sunday night affair, and of course, this wasn't NBC. This was more NFL Network, which means you had the Denver Broncos hosting the dumpster fire team called the New England Patriots. But as my brother said earlier in this segment, the Patriots did not look like the record that they touted coming into this game, as they dominated the second half of this game, and he eventually beat the Broncos in Mile High 26-23. Bailey Zappi, 25-33, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the defense of the Patriots, to me, were the stars of the game. 5 sacks with Christian Barmore giving you 3 of those 5 and 2 fumble recoveries. Russell Wilson, last legs, 25-37, 238 yards and 2 touchdowns. Your thoughts on this Sunday night affair?
You know, definitely the yawning was there. Definitely the yawning was there. But when you look at this right here, I mean, I guess good on the hoodie for getting that extra victory towards his, higher total that he has. But bad on Russell Wilson when you see for all the hype that we've had here and for them to slip and fall to where they're at now. So, I can't really say it was good for the Patriots, and it was definitely not good for the Broncos. We'll have to see how these last 2 weeks play out. We'll talk about that more here in a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. The Broncos fought and scratched and clawed, but it looks like all their fighting and scratching and clawing is going to put them on the back burner. because we'll talk about that the game that pretty much will pretty much take them out of the running altogether a little later in the seg. But we won't do really anything special for the Monday games, but we will talk about them. Starting with the afternoon tilt on Christmas Day, the Giants going down south, only 106 miles though, to face off against the Eagles in South Philly. The Eagles controlled the game, but the Eagles really felt as though the Giants weren't an accomplished opponent until the pick six that they got woke the Eagles up, and they finally won the game 33-25 over the Giants. Jalen Hurts, 24-38, 301 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Put forth also 8 carries, 34 more yards on the ground with, of course, a tush-push touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 20 carries, 92 yards and a touchdown, and then 92 of 170 rushing yards makes me want to do this. It's about time you start doing that, Eagles offense. A.J. Brown, 6 receptions, 80 yards. The Giants offense gave you 186 passing yards because Tony DeVito got pulled for Tyrod Taylor. Darius Slayton, 3 receptions, 90 yards and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley, who was, of course, the offense for the Giants, 23 carries, 80 yards, a touchdown. Only three receptions for 4 yards. Your thoughts on this? Okay, the Eagles' performance in terms of the opponent is but your thoughts, sir?
I would say it's more so bad on the Eagles' defense. The offense, of course, put up a good amount of points and looked pretty good, especially with what you see with Jalen Hurts putting up 301 yards. Didn't throw as many touchdowns or score as many touchdowns on the ground either, as you would say. But DeAndre Swift was probably what the saving grace was on the Eagles' side
100.
as far as establishing the run. The saving grace for the Giants to come back and score as many points was Tyrod Taylor coming back in for the first time since that rib injury. And then Tommy, don't call me Tony, whatever you want to call him, comes in and plays pretty decent up until this past weekend when, of course, they had to take him out yesterday, put in Tyrod Taylor and got him close enough. It was very similar to what we saw in Washington's game when they brought in Jacoby Brissett, the more mobile quarterback, help put more production on the ground and help get more points to keep the game a little bit more interesting. But I think this definitely exposed some things on the Eagles' defense that they need to address within the last couple of weeks of the season to get to where they can to make some type of run. They're definitely not the team that we saw last year and the team that I don't think we're going to see in the Super Bowl again, but we'll see more of that unravel in the next few weeks.
No, yeah, definitely. But we both have been calling for the Eagles to do this, and finally they wake up and actually discover, we have a running game. Wow. Yeah. But yeah, the defense needs to wake up because this is the 4th straight performance where they have not played good. This was better, but they got to be better. They got to be better than this, especially in January. This is going to make my partner very happy. The 49ers were man. This night had the 49ers in Santa Clara host the Baltimore Ravens, and the bully got bullied as the Ravens punched the 49ers in the mouth and punched them again and again and again, and the 49ers did not come up off the canvas. They took it on the chin, 33-19, thanks to the Ravens defense that put Brock Purdy on the ground a couple of times, put Sam Darnold on the ground a couple of times. 4 sacks on the day, Brent Urban with 2 of those sacks, and 5 INTs with the safety extraordinaire Kyle Hamilton giving you 2 of them. Lamar Jackson, pedestrian of a performance, 23-35, 252 yards and 2 touchdowns. We'll talk about him later. 7 carries and 45 yards on the ground. On the other side of the ball, Christian McCaffrey, 14 carries, 103 yards and a touchdown. Obviously, because of the final score, you realize why he did not carry it even more. 6 more receptions for 28 yards. Brock Purdy, the MVP frontrunner before Monday night, 18 of 32, 255 yards, and the stat that killed his 2023 NFL MVP candidacy, 4 INTs. George Kittle gave you 126 yards in the air over 7 receptions, and Brandon Ayuk getting to 1,000 yards, 113 yards on through the air on 6 receptions. Your thoughts on the Ravens controlling and demolishing the 49ers?
If you look at this game, statistically, the 49ers should have won this game if you take away the interceptions.
They should have, right.
But when you have 5 interceptions from your quarterbacks, 4 of them coming from Brock Purdy, the other one coming from Sam Darnold, definitely hinders your ability to get a victory. But the sad part is the fact that they had only lost, again, like another game we talked about a little while ago, the fact they only lost by 14 points and they threw for that many interceptions. Good on the Ravens for getting the victory, okay? And good on Lamar Jackson for leading the charge and helping this team get there. But again, the one thing that speaks out to me is the fact that your leading rusher for this team is Lamar Jackson, 7 rushes, 45 yards. You only won by 14 points, and you had 5 turnovers between the 4 interceptions from Purdy and the other one from Darnold. So looking at that right there, that does throw some red flags to me for what we could see this Ravens team do in the playoffs. Be happy for them all you want to, but when you have that many turnovers that you're receiving from the other team, you should be winning a little bit more decisively. And the fact that your running game is not getting established by your running backs, but it is by your quarterback, speaks volumes to me too. We'll see how that pans out in the next few weeks.
That is troublesome to me. That is absolutely troublesome. I don't want to see Lamar Jackson lead the Ravens in rushing. He does not need to do that. He has enough on his plate for him to also be the guy who is going to carry them on the ground. But they still won by 14 on the road against a team that came into the game 11-3. So that is impressive. But to me, I tip my cap to the defense more than to the offense because the Ravens came to play, and boy, did they ever. Ooh. Kudos to you, Ravens. Oh, and you Niners. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm off schedule. You're probably saying to me, well, Cole, you could have actually put the game you just said on Upset of the Week. Yes, the Ravens were underdogs. Yes, they beat the brakes off the 49ers. But who saw the Chiefs losing to the Raiders in Arrowhead? Not a soul. But that's what happened 1 to 4 p.m. yesterday. 20-14, the Chiefs took it on the chin to the Raiders. The Chiefs came in needing a win to clinch the AFC West. But the Raiders said, Mr. Hardy, delete. Zamir White was the star of the game on offense. 22 carries, 145 yards of the 157 yards that the Raiders did get on the ground. Then the Raiders defense, they carried the day too. 4 sacks with Malcolm Kuntz giving you 3 of those 4. Add an INT, add a fumble recovery to boot, and this defense just made things miserable for the Chiefs. Oh, did I say miserable? Oh, Aiden O'Connell, the quarterback of the Raiders, the winning team's quarterback, 9-21 for 62 yards. Oh, I'm sorry. Patrick Mahomes, who actually had a better stat line than O'Connell. 27-44, 235 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Your thoughts on this game with the resurging Raiders and the crumbling before our eyes Chiefs?
The pressure that the Raiders brought on to this Chiefs offense. The Raiders defense is bringing so much pressure on Mahomes. You can see the pocket collapsing on like every other play, if not more than that. So definitely big on them. They contain Travis Kelce and their other weapons as well throughout that tenure of the game. And definitely looks like Antonio Pierce is going to get that coaching job. Now, we need to go back and look in the archives of last week. I could be wrong, but I think I did predict this, the possibility of this happening with the Raiders coming in to Arrowhead and getting the victory. I'm not 100% certain if I was like, it's definitely going to happen, but I think I said something along the lines of don't be shocked if this does happen. Because of the way that this Chiefs offense has been playing this year. This is not the same Kansas City Chiefs team that we've been watching over the course of the past 3 to 4 years. So when it comes to that and what we saw, the Raiders can definitely keep building on this, and we may see them on top of this division in the next 1 to 2 years if they continue to trend upward like this. They need to learn from the Rich Bisaccia mistake and keep AP because he's definitely doing some great things with this team that McDummy could.
Oh, a Josh McDummy reference. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm getting word from our production booth. Yeah. Pull up that footage of Drew saying that the Raiders would actually be the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Wait. You have other footage? Okay. Well, we'll watch it right now.
Delete.
I'm sorry, man. But no, I do remember you saying that. I do remember saying that. All joking aside. And you were correct as to saying it. Yeah, this Chiefs offense is just not all that great. The defense is carrying the offense, and the defense can only carry them but so far. And the offense is not pulling their weight, and you're seeing what happens. But Chiefs, you got 1 win and 2 tries to sow the AFC West for I think the 7th or 8th consecutive year. Well, we'll see if you can do it. I think you can, because one of the games is against the Chargers. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
I was saying, yeah, you can do it. I think I can, like Thomas the Train.
Oh, gosh. And now we get to the game of the week. Oh, my gosh. You're incorrigible. The Dolphins hosting the Cowboys. And thankfully, not too many people were saying this.
Delete.
Thank you. Myself, Coach Dante, we all hate that. We all hate seeing that. I saw him on Snowman in the morning last week with you guys get up and walk away. He is tired of it. If I wasn't so tired from working last night, I'd do the same thing.
Cowboys fan were not all that happy this Christmas because Christmas Eve they got coal in their stocking due to the Dolphins beating them 22-20. Tua Tagovailoa, I won't say an awesome game, but a good game in terms of taking what the defense is giving them. 24 of 37, 293 yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill, who unfortunately I don't think he will get to 2,000 yards now, 9 receptions for 99 yards. The Dolphins defense really did a decent job. 4 sacks. Bradley Chubb with a sack and a half, and Andrew Van Ginkel with a sack and a half as well. And they got a fumble recovery off of Dak Prescott, who was 30 of 22 for 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that. And CeeDee Lamb, 6 receptions, 118 yards, 4 receptions for 92 yards in the first quarter. The other 2 and the 26 yards from quarters 2, 3, and 4. Your thoughts on this game, sir?
This game is definitely a back and forth game. This is definitely one that I enjoyed watching, and definitely enjoyed watching considering the fact that the team that deserved to win did win, and that being the Miami Dolphins. I'm glad to see the Cowboys did not win. Looking at this game right here, Tua did what he needed to get done. You know, he threw for 293 yards and a touchdown. But I think the biggest thing that we're going to look back on to what cost the Cowboys this game is that lost fumble by Dak Prescott. So had he not lost that fumble, the points that he could have put up in that drive, hell, if he would have put up a field goal, would have been enough to get the victory over the Dolphins. So if you're going to blame anybody for this game, you're going to blame old Dakota Rain Prescott.
And that's who exactly I blame. Here's the issue I have with the Cowboys right now. For those who are like the guy that you just saw singing, "Are you still them boys?" Here's the problem. Your team is not Super Bowl caliber because the defense is good. If you run at them, I think you can neutralize them, especially if you run in Micah Parsons, you can. That offense, you got to take advantage of these red zone opportunities. If you're not, you're going to have more of these L's happening. But if you can not settle for threes and get touchdowns, you will be better off. And thank you, Shannon Sharp, for saying it. I've been saying this about this team for the last 3 years. And plus, they can't run the ball, which makes their chances of pushing red zone touchdowns even harder. And the Dolphins, though, I'm angry at Mike McDaniel. When you have the ball in the red zone, don't go for it on fourth down. Take the points. So, yeah, two people who I don't like how they manage games. They sort of had a game of chicken as to see who was going to blunder worse. Mike McCarthy won the game in that department, but they lost the game on the scoreboard, 22-20, and that is game of the week for week 16 of the 2023 season. Well, when we come back, we will tell you who our dogs of the week are, or Grand Champ. But next will be the Gridiron Scoop. You are watching or listening to Total Football Talk. We're right back.
All right, let's go. We got trips, right? At 42, 989. On two. Ready? Break!
We're just getting started. Total Football Talk will return right after this.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. You kids on the block, New Edition,
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go
Ready to hang with some fellas who know football? Let's ride. LC Muscles 28.
I think they're the most overrated defense in the league.
Steel Sermon.
We did not trail for a single second.
Tiny Tim.
McCarthy is a bonehead.
A Pizzle 90.
I'm going with my boys. Fins up, baby!
Get ready for the Four Horsemen of Peckham's. Every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central on YouTube. Poppy J.
You got the option to cry for the government. You got the option to protest. You got the option to keep buying. But this is also an option.
Wise El Jefe.
We're the first tech geeks. We're the first gamers. We're the first everything. Everything. Like Gen X's, we are the ones.
BS3 Network proudly presents the crew from the New York boroughs who never wants that smoke. Nah, they want that fire. Poppy J and Wise El Jefe. Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Check your local listings for your viewing and listening pleasure.
With Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson. Welcome back to Total Football Talk. And we have gotten through the opening drive. And now it is time for touch on some of the big time topics that's facing, at least the NFL in this case, today and yesterday and maybe in the near future. One of those topics will be Trevor Lawrence. Now, you have to go back to high school to find a game that Lawrence missed due to injury. And despite battling through an ankle injury and clearing concussion protocol before this past Sunday's game, he, of course, started. But the latest injury that he suffered might break that streak because he had his shoulder examined yesterday, and according to Doug Peterson, the former number one, the head coach of the team, the former number one looks like he's going to probably sit because he injured his right shoulder during a run in the third quarter of the 30-12 loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Lawrence himself said, quote, "It's bothering me. We're going to check it out tomorrow, I'm sure. So we'll have more later on in the week. So hopefully nothing major, but yeah, it's bugging me right now." Close quote. Now, my question to you, sir. The Jaguars are locked in an AFC South tug of war between themselves, the Colts, and the Texans. Will Trevor Lawrence's injured shoulder preclude the Jaguars from winning the AFC South?
I think that based on the last two teams that they're playing this year, they still have a decent shot of winning out these last two games. Even if CJ Beathard is playing, they definitely can they have a good shot of winning this weekend against the Panthers. The Titans is going to be a flip of the coin, depending on what Jaguars team we get on the defensive side that day. Because their defensive side with Josh Allen leading the way, the other Josh Allen has definitely been a big reason of why they got the wins they do this year. It's not all on the shoulders of Trevor Lawrence. So looking at what Trevor Lawrence has been as far as the impact of the quarterback position for this team, don't want to take anything away from him. They still have a shot, but based on the way that they played this past weekend with him, I don't know. Even if they do make it to the playoffs, they're not going to make any noise, like I was saying earlier, based on what they did by putting up only 12 points in that game against the Bucs with him, because he didn't go down until later in the game. So again, he didn't really do much in the first half with Trevor Lawrence. So don't really have much high hopes for this team. Regardless, they win out these next 2 weeks. I feel like they definitely can win this weekend against the Panthers without him. It's going to be a question mark on who the Titans have playing for them in that final week. And if Ryan Tannehill is still playing a quarterback, what kind of Ryan Tannehill will they have going against this Jaguars team? There's many questions that will need to be answered after this following week. But if they don't have him for this weekend, I feel like they still have a pretty good chance with CJ Beathard to get the victory over the Panthers.
Well, it's looking more and more bleak for whoever comes out of the AFC South as the champion, because the team they'll face will either be more than likely the Browns or the Ravens. I don't think the Ravens are going to fall back to number 5 seed, but the Browns, who have the number 5 seed, they ran roughshod throughout all of the AFC South this year.
And I'd rather face the Ravens than the Browns.
I would too.
The Ravens defense is not as up to speed as the Browns defense is. So even though they both used to be one franchise, the Ravens definitely, as we saw yesterday, have a little bit more things that you don't need to be worried about and concerned about when you play them as concerned when you look at the Browns, because the Browns defense, Joe Flacco still threw 2 interceptions yesterday and they still had a decisive victory.
The Browns defense is ridiculous. Whew. I feel for any team that goes against them. Ooh, it's going to be tough. Now, from tough to actually heartwarming, the Lions clinch the NFC North for the first time ever. That's right. You heard me right. The first time ever. And they clinch a divisional title for the first time in 30 years. And why did I say first time ever? Well, because the last time they clinched any, and I mean any, divisional title, it was the NFC Central they did. Now, with the 30-24 Sunday victory over the Vikings in the Twin Cities, the Lions captured that divisional title that I mentioned. And the playoff berth was also the Lions' first in 7 years. And the franchise is looking to do more firsts because they're looking to end a league worst postseason victory drought that extends all the way to January of 1992. The game where they dispatched the Cowboys 38-6 in the Silverdome, not Superdome, Hogan. I'm sorry. And basically, it's their lone victory in the NFL playoffs since 1957. But the question I have to ask you is, considering that the Lions have won their division for the first time in 30 years and they've won an NFC North title for the first time in their franchise's history, how huge is this for the Lions and even the city of Detroit that this has taken place?
It was absolutely huge because, I mean, except for the Detroit Tigers having some success in baseball, over the course of the past 20 years, it's not that much. It's about as much as what we've seen for the Lions. It's huge. I mean, the first NFC North title, like you said, definitely big. First division championship in 30 years. However, even though it's huge for the city right now, I feel like this might be the peak for this season because when it comes to this next week, you got to play a Cowboys team is definitely no slouch. Okay, you don't really have much to play for at this point because you've already wrapped the division. You're playing the same team that you just basically barely squeaked out a win against for a team that threw 4 interceptions against you, that being Nick Mullins and the Vikings, and you barely squeaked out with a 6-point victory to make this happen this past weekend. You have to play them again in 2 weeks on January 7th, my birthday. So if you're barely going to squeak out a victory on them by 6 points and they gave you 4 interceptions, it doesn't look good to me, especially when you've already won the division. You don't really have much to play for, so you're going to probably lose against the Cowboys. You're not going to be going at full speed in Week 18. You could potentially lose a meaningless game to the Vikings, which will give you a bad momentum setup for the playoffs. So I got a feeling that we may have seen the peak for the Lions this past weekend. Had they not basically won by only 6 points for only receiving 4 interceptions, I wouldn't be speaking so negatively about them because you can attest to this, Cole, all season long throughout this show. I have spoke very highly of the Lions, Man Campbell, biting kneecaps, getting very excited. But I saw some red flags this past weekend when you are getting 4 interceptions by a third or fourth string quarterback at this point for the Vikings and barely squeaking out a victory, in my opinion, by 6 points at the end of the game. It doesn't look good for these last 2 weeks, and it doesn't look good for their playoff run if that's how they're going to barely be getting in here. I could be wrong, but it didn't look like they took their foot off the gas this game. They were still playing hard. So looking at this right here, it's just too many red flags for these last couple weeks of the season to get me excited about this team going into the playoffs. But definitely good on them for getting the victory and getting their first division championship in 30 years.
Yeah. Well, for the Lions, so they have the possibility of having the number 2 seed. Heck, I mean, they probably could get the number 1 seed if the 49ers decide to tank. I don't think they will, considering one of the games they play against the Rams. I don't have to mention the other. But the Eagles' schedule is easy, and the Lions is tough, considering the game you just mentioned that's up next on their schedule. And they just struggled with the team that they just played, and that's who they end their season against, which is the Vikings. So, yeah, I think they may have peaked. I hope they didn't peak to the point where they don't give that Detroit crowd the first victory in the playoffs in 31 years, because I would want them to do that. I would want this team to at least get them to the divisional round and actually have a win under their belt in the playoffs. And if they could do that, I'd be happy for them. But hopefully, I'm going to say you're wrong. Hopefully, I'm hoping you are wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too. I'm just going based on what I'm seeing.
Yes, I'm saying I don't want them to peak, but with the eyes that I've seen too, I agree with you. I think they have. But man, I want to be wrong though.
Yeah, me same, because like this is something that I don't want to bet on. I have a feeling, but I wouldn't encourage anybody to bet this way, just because in the game of football, it can go any way on any given day. So when it comes to that, I'm just, from what I'm seeing on a regular basis and watching the entirety of that game, because I had multiple TVs on at the same time watching this stuff over this past weekend while doing holiday stuff, but definitely seeing this, I've got some concerns for this Detroit Lions team going into this playoffs, but I'm happy that they got to this point. We've been seeing flashes in the pan of this team to get to this point over the course of the past few seasons. Definitely good on them to finally make it come into fruition.
Yeah, I agree. But congratulations. I think they're going to have the upcoming Coach of the Year in Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff, a beautiful resurgence to your career. I'm glad that you're having a second life because that team needed you to be what you've been. And look what you've done in the second year. You've been a Lion. You've given them a title that they haven't had in 3 decades. So you're doing something right. And speaking of people doing something right or possibly, there is a host of people that we can talk about for MVP candidates. But it looked like coming into last night, it was Brock Purdy's award to lose. But with the 4 picks, that pretty much has been all shot. But now, coming out of that game, it looks like a new favorite has emerged, and his name, Lamar Jackson. Now, this is the biggest fallout that I think you had in this game is him being the MVP frontrunner. Well, it's a done deal considering the words of one John Harbaugh, the head coach of the Ravens. Quote, I thought Lamar had an MVP performance tonight. It takes a team to create a performance like that, but to play at an MVP level, it takes a player to play that way. And Lamar was all over the field doing everything. Close quote. Beautiful sell job, Mr. Harbaugh. Beautiful sell job. I'm sorry, my bad. Professional, Cole. Professional. Woosah. Okay, the question I have. Do you believe Lamar Jackson is the 2023 NFL MVP frontrunner?
If the season ended now, yes. I believe that he would earn it because he's thrown for over 3,300 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, has a QBR of 63.0, which is 8th. But when you look at this past game, he did throw for 2 touchdowns, had a QBR of nearly 87, completed nearly 66% of his passes, and had 250 passing yards. And not to mention what he's done on the ground as well, as he's been like their leading rusher over several games this season that we have definitely talked about on a regular basis on this show. So looking at it right now, going into this week, I'd give it to Purdy. I would say probably my top 3 at this point would be you'd have to give it to Lamar for what he's doing, especially for knocking off the 49ers like he did last night. Then I would have to say Christian McCaffrey, even though he beat that team, the 49ers, for what he's done, 21 touchdowns or whatnot for the season and what he's meant to this 49ers team. He is now the MVP of the 49ers team and has been arguably so between him and Purdy all year long. But definitely with Purdy getting knocked down and throwing the amount of interceptions that he did last night, he's not coming back up for these last 2 weeks of the season. It's going to be between Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey, depending on how the Ravens finish these last 2 weeks and how the 49ers finish. 49ers went out and McCaffrey continues to be what he's been all year long, scoring a touchdown or 2 and putting up great numbers throughout these last 2 weeks. I can see McCaffrey still pulling this one out. But with 2 weeks left, if the season ended right now, I'd have to give it to Lamar Jackson for what he did last night, even though I still have some, I'm still got some reservations on the Ravens based on the fact that Purdy threw for 4 touchdowns and they only won by 2 possessions. That's why I still have to say that McCaffrey is still in this race because McCaffrey is a big part of the reason why they had the amount of points they did yesterday. So got to give McCaffrey the credit there for what he's done all year long. I would say Tua will probably be 3rd. So I'd have Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and Tua Tagovailoa at 3rd because after how Dak's fallen off the past couple weeks as well, I would have him up in the top 3 before this past weekend, past 2 weeks or whatnot. So he's had a good year too, but right now got Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Tua Tagovailoa in the top 3.
Just what you said there, I have to change a question I was going to ask. I like that. Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Although I'm not really sold on Lamar Jackson being MVP. In fact, to me, I think Christian McCaffrey has earned the award. However, I mean, to now. I mean, of course, there's still 2 more weeks of the regular season to play to this moment. However, the NFL has been crapping on running backs so bad in the last 5 years. I'm almost thinking that they do not want to give it to one, but
because they're going to have to pay him.
Yeah, but the way McCaffrey, exactly, they'd have to pay him. But the way McCaffrey is played, though, you can't deny him. You can't deny him that. You can't because I mean, That engine runs with him. And yes, Purdy has done great job. He's done a great job. Last night's game notwithstanding, but McCaffrey, as we've seen, even in losses, the dude gets over 100 yards. Yeah. So yeah, I think he'll be it. However, yeah, if the Ravens went out, I think Lamar Jackson is going to end up having his second MVP. But I'm not saying I'm not really feeling as though he earned it, so to speak. Although, yes, I get what you're saying. I'm just not feeling that. Not him. And I don't have an issue toward him. I just think others have done other things that make me say, wow, more this year than Lamar has. But who am I?
Total football talk.
Oh yeah. Where my dogs at? Time to award the grand champ for week 16 of the NFL 2023 season. And for his dog of the week or grand champ, I turn the floor over to Drew.
You know, some of the stats for this one guy, you may argue as for this pick, he doesn't deserve it. But I'm going to tell your mother, father, and wrong. Because when it comes to this guy coming off of the couch, okay, going onto a practice squad, then playing a game and having a good game a few weeks ago, and then going back on the practice squad because the way it was structurally set up, which was still mind-boggling to me, but that's just the way the NFL is set up. When I think about that, the fact that he could have easily fallen off because, yeah, he's a Super Bowl MVP and has won a Super Bowl about 10 years ago with a different team in the same conference in the AFC. But when I think about that and the fact that, yeah, that used to be a former team, and now that he is on that former team, the new reincarnation over the past 24 years is on that team to stick it to the former team, then do what he's doing with this current team. Probably confusing the blank out of you right now. But when you think about the fact that you've got Joe Flacco here, this is one that I'm speaking of, coming off the couch, man who's 38 years old, the fifth oldest player in the NFL currently, coming in. Yeah, he threw for 2 interceptions this past week, but the man was on the couch for a while. Give him a break. The fact that he threw for 3 touchdowns, 368 yards on 42 attempts, completing 27 of those to help lead this Browns team. Yeah, they do have a stellar defense. It's a big part of the reason why they won that game. But you still have to have somebody come in to manage the game and not completely give it to the other team. Yeah, he gave him 2 interceptions, but again, the man came off the couch. And before he went on the couch, wasn't the greatest of quarterbacks to play, which is why he was on the couch to begin with. Okay, so he was the modern era Trent Dilfer for the Ravens, which helped manage the game and get them to that Super Bowl victory over 10 years ago. However, Trent Dilfer did not win a Super Bowl MVP. And in the game where it mattered the most, in the game that mattered the most, he was able to play his best game ever, and he got paid for it, heavily compensated for it afterwards. We could see something similar for that this year, where Joe Flacco helps lead the Browns on a pretty good run to the AFC Championship game. Don't think they'll get past that, but it'll be a good way to close his career. As you know, when he first started, he was a part of a team that helped carry him to the promised land. At least be a part of the team to get the Bernie Kosar treatment, get to the AFC Championship game and lose. I see that for Joe Flacco this year after what he did, throwing for nearly 400 passing yards against the team that they played this past weekend is not that easy when you're playing against the Texans, who have had a very good defense all year long, which Cole can tell you all about that. Cole wasn't happy to talk about it earlier, but he can at least acknowledge the fact, and speaking of acknowledge me. He can acknowledge the fact that defense has been one stellar defense all year long. So got to give credit where it's due. But the Browns have had a better defense than what the Texans did. But for Joe Flacco to do what he did on that Texans defense is no joke. That's why I have to give him the dog of the week.
Yeah. And yeah, I have no issue giving the Browns their props. Even with that defense dismantling the Texans and just having them not have their way. but I agree with you. I think the defense has gotten more confidence because of Joe Flacco. I do agree with you there. And although he has not been as efficient as he needs to be, and he's not taking care of the ball the way he should, he's taking care of the ball enough, and he has put points on the board, enough of them to where the Browns can just pin their ears back and just be their loose selves on defense. So yeah, I agree with you there. You know, I am a Texans fan. I make no bones about it. And I also make no bones about the fact that my Texans got mollywopped Sunday. Mollywopped. And yes, onward and upward for them. Now they have the Titans that's coming up next. And hopefully they have the AFC South in their crosshairs. However, the reason why they got mollywopped was partially because of Flacco. But to me, the secondary got ate all the way up because of one Amari Cooper. Let me say how much I respect Amari Cooper. This man has has had games where he has done 200 yards twice for 3 separate teams. The only other wide receiver that's done that in the history of the NFL is Terrell Owens. So Mr. Cooper is in some select company. 265. As you heard in the previous segment, many quarterbacks this week didn't throw for that many yards. This man caught for as many yards as quarterbacks throw for in a given game. 265 yards. This basically tells the Texans they got to go to the drawing board in the offseason to have a better secondary and to have a better pass rush than they put forth this past Sunday. But you have a wide receiver that took advantage of that secondary, along with a quarterback that did so as well. But Amari Cooper, you are the stud this week because no player had a bigger week than you. And yes, you can definitely thank Joe Flacco, and you've bonded with him quite quickly, and it's helped. But man, 265 yards in a week, whew, all I could do is just applaud. And you did that on my team. So that's all I could do. I had to give you props. Amari, thank you, brother, for a wonderful performance. And you're going to help that team go as far as they can because they need every single bit of your expertise on the drive to wherever the Browns end up in 2023. We'll be right back.
Coming up next, the featured attractions. This is Total Football Talk. Comey Media Incorporated, creating content magic in the real world.
Little right here. Look at the inside of these cakes. Now, when you bite into it, just as I demonstrated while you were talking at the beginning of your discussion right there, I could taste the drugs inside of this cake, Sick. I could taste the addiction within the cream filling of this cake right here, to where they not only just with that cake right there, but they made an ice cream out of it. They made an ice cream out of it. A 1-pint Christmas tree cake ice cream. Look at that little just smile up there. Look, she is up to no good on there. Look at that. Look at that smile on there, Sick. She knows that she got you. Got him is what's in her mind right now.
Acknowledge me.
Look at that little smile right there. She's up to no good.
D. Willie in the evening. Thursdays at 11:15 p.m. Eastern, 10:15 p.m. Central. Exclusively on Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, look. Hey, stop playing games. Y'all already know. Go ahead and toss him some Willie bucks. Ain't nobody playing around. Hey, $ D Willie 87. Go ahead, hit him up on the Cash App, and go ahead and give him some Willie bucks. Look at Drew looking stoic, ladies and gentlemen. Stoic on that $10 bill. So go ahead, slide my man over some Willie bucks, and we good. That's all I'm saying. We good. How about some Willie bucks?
Shirtoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon, and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
Cocaine-laced Christmas cookies. Welcome back to Total Football Talk. Yes, referring to the D. Willingham evening commercial. But with Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson. And that just blew my mind. The stuff that just does not get old, I swear.
I'm glad they're gone from the stores. You cannot get them on the shelves anymore. You will have to wait another 11 months to get your Christmas tree cookie fix. It's coming. Or your Christmas tree cake fix. Good. All out of the house. The drugs are gone.
The drugs are gone. Goodness gracious. All right. My goodness. Well, from Christmas tree cookies and cake to what's going to be on tap. Oh, goodness. That leads into the new year in NFL. His featured tracks is, oh my gosh. All right, here is where we feature 3 games that we deem the most important on the slate going into the upcoming week. So we're now week 17, and all the times we will mention from here on are Eastern Standard Times. I know you hear this during the summer. That's daylight. We are in Eastern Standard Time. I'm sorry, stickler with that. But we focus on the first of the 3, and you mentioned it earlier when we talked about the Lions in the Gridiron Scoop segment. The Lions at 11-4, they traveled down south to Arlington to face off against, as Cool McCain would call them, the Arlington football team, or the Dallas Cowboys. They are at 10-5. They're reeling off of 2 games, losing to AFC East teams on the road, but the Cowboys are favored by 2 field goals. The kickoff is on 8:15 Saturday evening. As for the Lions, now we talked about how this was a feel-good moment for them. I mean, heck, even Dan Campbell was on the 0-16 2018 and as a player. So from that to now helming the team to winning the first championship of their division 15 years later, it's a good full circle moment. But now that is the past. The present and the future lie ahead. Should they focus on the number 2 seed, or should they just simply say, forget it? The worst we have is the number 3 seed. We at least have a home game in the wild card round, and we should rest up for the playoffs.
I like option B better because you played your entire best team this past weekend against the Vikings. And, Nick Mullins is 4 interceptions. You still only won by 6 points. Now, you could look at it on the other hand and say, well, you're not going to be facing teams that throw 4 interceptions a lot of the time. And that's exactly my point. Had they not received those 4 interceptions, they might not have won that game. So if it were me, I'd want to rest my stars to make sure that they can put up better production when it comes to the playoffs, because you're already going to be playing the Arlington Desperados this weekend, where in this case, they're definitely probably going to lose to the Arlington Desperados, okay? Then in your last game of the season in week 18, you have in week 18, you still have to face that Vikings team that you barely won against, that you had those 4 interceptions in reception against, and you still barely won. So if it were me, why are you going to play hard to potentially lose when you might as well get the best recovery out of your players for the next 2 weeks and then see what you can do as that 3rd seed in the playoffs?
To your point, sir, that last interception they got Sunday was in the end zone. So if they didn't get that INT, more than likely we're talking about the Lions not clinching the NFC North and losing that game 31-20, 31-30. So to your point of they didn't take advantage as much advantage of the 4 INTs that they got, they needed every single one of them to win that game. So yes, I agree. That is a red flag for playing teams like they're about to play Saturday. I agree on that front for sure. On the flip side of things, so they go to Buffalo, they get shellacked 31-10. They go to South Beach, they play a tight game, but they lose with a game-winning field goal of 29 yards. Now they're coming home, and they're playing a playoff. Well, not contender. They're playing a playoff team and a divisional winner, and then the next week they play the Commanders, which, even though yes, the Commanders are the Commanders, that normally is a tough game because you're talking about NFC East foes. However, I'm not really concerned about what they're playing ahead, and even if they would have locked the 5th seed down, playing either Tampa or the Saints or the Falcons, and being a road favorite. The way this team has looked, should we even consider the Cowboys to be a Super Bowl contender?
Before I answer that, Austin Loring in the PSF app says CJ Gardner-Johnson will finally be back against the Cowboys this week. So that's something we have to look about for the Lions.
Huge pickup.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
that is a huge return. So a game that we saw that was barely a 6-point win this past week that could definitely be a huge difference maker with old CGJ back in there. So have to give a shout out to him on the PSF app for that comment, because that definitely will help their chances of improving their points that they're scoring, but also in their defense against the Cowboys as well. But to your question that you here, when it comes to the Cowboys, can be considered a Super Bowl contender. This team right here, I had to click that right there because who actually believes they're going to be a Super Bowl contender? Come on, Bishop.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
30 years now. 30 years nearly. You guys have had to do this after every single season.
Stop it. Get some help.
Because you just can't withstand the fact that your team continues to... When it comes to your team and how things are, I will only say, in some aspects, when watching this team this year, it's felt like you've had this.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh!
Delete! 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 Delete!
Until it gets deleted. So when it comes to this team right here, do I think they're a Super Bowl contender? I don't think I will ever feel like they are a Super Bowl contender until they have an undefeated season. But will the Cowboys ever have an undefeated season? I'll have to say
hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
I rest my case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I love slam dunk questions like that. All right. I think I know where you're leaning, but and why and I wholeheartedly agree with every single syllable you said about that answer to that question. But I think I know where you're leaning. Who do you have in this game?
With this game right here, based on how the Lions played this past weekend, even though Austin brings up a very good point in PSF that you're getting CGJ back this upcoming weekend for the Lions, I still feel like the Cowboys are going to beat the Lions this week. The Lions don't have much to prove at this point. The best they can move up to is a second seed, like you had said. So, play hard for 2 weeks just to get the second seed. You get a little bit better seeding, and it doesn't really give you much more elevation for the playoffs, or rest your key players to where they can be more dominant in that first start of the playoffs. I feel like the Cowboys get this win this week. They need it more for what they've got going over there in the NFC East. And I feel like they're going to step it up this next weekend and get it done for the Arlington Desperados. So when I look at that, I have to give it to them. And even though I like the fact that CJGJ, as you would say, CGJ or whatever you want to call him, old CJ Gardner-Johnson was coming back, that is good news. But I got to give it to the Cowboys this one, even though I don't want to. I still look at them as Super Bowl contenders, but I feel like for this week, based on what the Lions did this past weekend, it's not looking good for them. Got to give it to the Cowboys.
I would love to give this to the Lions, but I really believe the Cowboys have more to play for this week. And I think they will be playing with more of a chip on their shoulder because they want to prove that they're not the team that they have looked like the last 2 weeks. So they're coming back home. They play a lot better when they're at home. In fact, they're undefeated at home, if I'm not mistaken, this year. So they play a lot better at home. They're now on a 2-game losing streak, and now they're looking up at the Eagles because they trail them by a game, and now they got to feverishly claw back and hopefully catch them for the NFC East title. So they got a lot more to play for than a team that has already clinched their spot in the playoffs. Although the Cowboys have a playoff spot clinched too. Yeah, I see it being the Cowboys. I just don't think I just think the Lions don't have as much to play for as the Cowboys do. Interesting game here, Sunday 1 p.m. kick. As a friend of ours would say, the Indianapolis Colts holding on to dear life to that number 7 seed at 8-7. They're playing a team that's on the outside looking in the Raiders at 7-8. And I know you're saying, well, wait a minute, Cole. A team that's outside of playoffs and a team that's inside the playoffs, this is considered a feature attraction? Yes, for this reason. So you have the Raiders who looked like they were circling the doggone drain when Antonio Pierce got a hold of them and became their head coach or interim or head coach pro temp. And we did not even think this team was going to compete for anything. Now, not only are they on the doorstep to a playoff bid, but if things fall the way they would like, they might be on the doorstep to at least a shot at the AFC West crown. So what shot do you give the Raiders, not necessarily winning the AFC West, but what shot do you give the Raiders for making the playoffs?
They potentially could win these next 2 weeks and make the playoffs. Because you look at the fact that they're playing the Colts, a team that was, played very underwhelmingly this past weekend against the Falcons. And, Uncle Rico has been spotty throughout his career, being, at the quarterback position, especially a reason why he's a backup. But when it comes to this Raiders team, I mean, on the 14th, they beat the Chargers very decisively, 63-21, and they beat still a very good Chiefs team, even though the Chiefs are not the same team that they once were. And we've seen that throughout the course of the season. They're still better than most teams. Okay. Even a team that is not at, the level of what the Chiefs have been is still a top 5 team in the league from what we're seeing. And, even with that being said, again, any team can win on any given day. And the Raiders have proved that, as they are now still have a shot, a small chance, but they still have a chance of having a winning record, a winning record by the end of this year. And something that with the culture of this team, when their previous head coach was there, we didn't think that was going to be possible this season. Now, hopefully they learn from the Rich Bisaccia BS and they still AP at the end of this year. You could tell with how emotional he was after the game yesterday about how much that victory meant to him and how much this momentum rise and how much this team has played in a positive direction has meant to him over the course of his interim head coaching time with this team. The fact that any of us would love to have the opportunity like Antonio Pierce has, the knowledge that he has from playing, but also the opportunity, this number one thing being the opportunity to coach a team that was your boyhood team, your childhood team. Growing up, you love the Raiders and you have the opportunity. You might not have been able to play for them and have the success you did in your career by becoming a Super Bowl champion and whatnot, but to still have the opportunity to coach them and the way things went down this year for you to be the interim head coach, doing positive things to where you will more than likely get some type of extension as a head coach for another year or two to see what you have. I think it's a great story for the Raiders. Whether they make the playoffs or not, they have a really good chance. They win this weekend against the Colts. You got a really good chance against the Broncos. If you don't win this weekend, then you pretty much chalk it up. But I still think that the successes of this team warrant AP an opportunity to be the head coach going down the line.
Yeah. And they'll be coming to Vegas. So yeah, I do like their chances. Now, will they make it? That's a different story. But I mean, I will say this. I'll jump on the bandwagon too. Bowl cut, hire Antonio Pierce as your head coach going forward. This is your guy. I know you want to deal with the model, but deal with the fact your team needs a head coach and you want your team to go the way that your father had them going back when you were a young Richie Rich. I digress. The Colts. Now, they're favored by 3 in this game. They seem to they had a formula on offense. Timely passes downfield with Minshew to Mo Cox and Michael Pittman, who unfortunately took a nasty hit last weekend. And running the ball with Moss and Taylor. But against the Falcons, that just seemed to go completely out of the window. When the Colts can run, that team seems to be better. Can their running attack return against the Raiders?
Oh, it's been pretty non-existent for the past month. So since November 26th was the last time the Colts had a good game. Mr. Taylor had 91 yards, 2 touchdowns in that game. And since then, except for the one game, Zach Sermon had like 17 carries for 88 yards a few weeks back. Their team has had very, very minuscule numbers when it comes to the running attack. Given the fact they're playing a team, the Raiders, this weekend, I don't think they're going to be able to find their running game this weekend. They may be able to find it the following week, but this week against the Raiders, considering how much pressure they were putting on the Chiefs yesterday, and they couldn't even run the ball against them, and this is the Kansas City Chiefs, don't have that much hope for this team as the Indianapolis Colts led by Uncle Rico.
Yeah. And I think that running game that I don't think they will find either. I believe that is what they need to beat a team like the Raiders, because you got to have that pass rush be on its heels instead of going forward. And the only way you can do that is actually have a running attack to where the pass rushers have to think, oh, we got to run stop now. So in this game, who do you see coming out of Lucas Oil Stadium with the victory?
I think the Raiders continue want to get their 3rd straight win and improve to 8-8 with the opportunity in their following week to give themselves a winning record after everything they've gone through this year.
Well, of course, I am rooting for the Raiders, obviously, for obvious reasons. But fan head off analyst at Han, I'm not liking that run offense for the Colts. And to have Minshew drop back to pass that many times and rely on his arm to win you a game, that puts the defense in a bad position and it puts the offense in an even worse position. And I think if you have an offense that's a little compromised and one-dimensional, I think that plays in the hands of the Raiders. So I think they will go into Indianapolis like they did 2 years ago and come out with a W. It's unfortunate timing for the Colts because they need to have this victory and, of course, the following week at home against the Texans, but I just don't like their chances in this one. And then the game of the week, possibly the game of the year. And Don the Baby underscore says, "Yo, what's up?" And he says, Ravens all the way. We pretty much know who you're picking, Don the Baby underscore. The Ravens host the Ravens host the Dolphins, and there's a lot at stake because if the Dolphins win, they will have the number 1 seed, and the Ravens will have to pray that the Bills beat the Dolphins the very next week. If the Ravens win, they will clinch the number 1 seed, and they will also be the AFC North champs to boot. Now, the Ravens are at home. They're 3-point faves. It is a Sunday 1 p.m. kick. Oh, and by the way, we're done with all the Monday Night Football games until we get to the wild card round. But for the Dolphins, for the Dolphins, I like the fact that they want to be balanced. I like the fact that defensively they come up with opportunistic plays. So there's a lot to like about the team. My issue is Mike McDaniel. I think he manages the game poorly, and I think that could be a problem. But that's not really what the question is headed for me. So the Dolphins need this game. They probably need a little more and a little worse than the Ravens do, because I think they're coming off of a high. If the Dolphins win, does this make Tua Tagovailoa the MVP frontrunner?
No. Because without Tyreek Hill, he wouldn't even be third on that list. And Tyreek Hill would be further on up had he not had to take time off because of the ankle injury. So regardless of what happens in this game, unless Christian McCaffrey takes a huge dive, I know in this game, with the fact of you having Tua versus Lamar Jackson, you know, if Tua has a better game than Lamar Jackson, it can make Lamar Jackson come down. But if you still have Christian McCaffrey having a pretty solid game this next weekend and in the weekend after that, we could see him literally run away with the MVP this year. So despite how this game is, I know that on paper it looks enticing because you got somebody who's in a lot of people's brackets, in mine and a lot of people around the world, saying that you got Lamar, Christian, and Tua, right? If Tua does better than Lamar, you got to move him on up. But you have to have a considerable better game that would still have to make you overlook what Christian McCaffrey has done all year long if Christian McCaffrey continues to still have a good game this weekend. Now, if Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey both lay an egg and Tua just goes video game, then and only then I will have a change of heart in that situation. But when it comes to that, I have to give the credit where it's due. And I'm still going with right now Lamar Jackson and Christian McCaffrey, and it's not going to change from that more than likely.
And I agree with you. I don't think, and I'll even say, even if Tua throws a 400-yard, basically has the same type of game they had 2 years. Was it 2 years ago? Yeah, it was 2 years ago, where Tua had a horrible 3 quarters and he threw 4 touchdowns in the 4th quarter, and he pulls out the game and wins. Even though that would be an MVP type of moment, even if he were to have that type of game, I don't think he would become the front runner, even if he had that type of performance. On the flip side, so you got the Ravens. They're now at 12 wins. Of course, they've lost his close to playoff spots, so that's not an issue. Now they want to hold off the Browns and win the AFC North, and with the win, they will do that. The possibility of a letdown might happen. So even though this is their final home game even though this is their second to final home game of the year, because of course they end at home against the Steelers, will the Ravens suffer a letdown because of a primetime victory, a big-time primetime victory at that, against the 49ers?
It's a good question. I think, in going back to what we talked about earlier, the fact that the 49ers threw 4 interceptions. Well, if you add Sam Darnold, it's 5. There's 5 interceptions that the Ravens had and still only won by 2 possessions. I think that exposed them a little bit, considering the fact of how electric the Dolphins' offense has been and very hard for defenses to stop. Now, the Ravens have a pretty good chance to stop that offense because of how well they've played on defense this year. But with them getting exposed this past week and having 5 interceptions that they recovered from the other team and only mustering up a 2-possession victory on that, I think that does give the upper hand to the Dolphins on this one.
Okay. All right. And that's who you're going to roll with for this game? Dolphins?
It's tough because I think about what I just said, and it's literally because of the talent of these two teams. It's like I want to flip a coin, but I can't. I've got to give some type of decisive call here. And just looking back on what I just said with how they got exposed against the 49ers team, having that many amount of recoveries and the interceptions, I don't think that the Dolphins are going to make that same mistake by turning the ball over that many times. And it took that many amount of turnovers for the Ravens to win. So I'm saying what I'm saying because you don't necessarily on the average day recover 5, fumbles or interceptions in a game.
Yeah.
And the fact that they did, and it took that amount of recoveries for them to get the victory, I think the Dolphins win this game. I don't think it's going to be a very decisive game.
No.
But I think the Dolphins win this game by anywhere between 3 to 10 points.
Okay. Well, if that would be the case, the Dolphins also would clinch the AFC East. So there's a lot riding on this game. So keep in mind, if the Ravens win this game, they clinch the AFC North, and they clinch the number 1 seed throughout the AFC. If the Dolphins were to win, they clinch the AFC East, and they'll have the inside track to the number 1 seed in the AFC. So we'll pretty much know where the road to the Super Bowl will go through in the AFC. Will it be Baltimore or will it be South Beach? We'll see that on Sunday. Let me see. Mickey, he picked the Cowboys. He picked the Raiders. And I hadn't seen who he has picked yet between the Ravens and the Dolphins. But join in the chat or in the PSF app. Who do you believe is going to win the featured attraction games that we have? And speaking of featured attractions, Snowflake of the Week is not next, but it is coming up. But we're going to do a chopping block before then. This is Total Football Talk.
Next, the chopping block and Snowflake of the Week. This is Total Football Talk. Join Ryan McCarthy.
I became a Jets fan because Kurt the Frog was my favorite Muppet because he was green, and the Jets wore green. That's how I became a Jets fan.
And Dustin Henry.
ESPN is cashing all in on let's pay a few personalities and we'll just kind of fill in the gaps.
As they walk you through all of the world of sports from their perspective.
The Albany Empire, it's a literal circus.
No credentials required. Where, Ryan, say the tag.
Where you don't need a press pass to talk sports.
Every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. On YouTube and where you can find all podcasts. This is a BS3 Network presentation.
I want to do a TED Talk, but I don't have anything to talk about yet. I'm getting there.
Life is for the living. We're not here that long.
You can learn anything you want to learn without any money spent.
What do I really enjoy? What do I really want out of life?
I am your host, WIZE.
Are you in a life holding pattern? Well, this is for you. Welcome to the Stuck in My Mind podcast. Live every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central. Football, and more football, you say? Well, tune in to Total Football Talk. Join your hosts, Drew Willingham.
You were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback.
And Cole Johnson.
It sets up for possible play action. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott?
As they take you through all the paces, both on the field and in the boardroom, of Total Football Talk. Every Tuesday at
9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central.
Exclusively on the Sertoba Media and the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel.
Welcome back to Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I'm Cole Johnson. And yeah, we're definitely enjoying this. We're moving right along. Oh, and Mick, he picks the Ravens. So nice choice. And hey,
good job, Mick.
There's a lot riding on that game. And that definitely now it's just not just the game of the week, but right now it's the game of the year thus far. So I think we have a couple of things to put on. It's a certain block. I don't know what you call it. Oh, yeah, chopping block. Micah Parsons. Now, I don't gather Hetty because the player he is. The dude balls. And to me, he's the best player on the Cowboys. And number 2 is the distant second. But he opens his mouth at inopportune times and says things he shouldn't. What's the topic du jour this time? NFL officiating. Now, of course, you may remember in the 22-20 L that the Cowboys took at the hands of the Dolphins. There was a roughing the passer penalty that he took as he hit Tua, but it wasn't a bad hit. It wasn't a vicious hit. It was one of those where you know that if a ref is going to have a judgment call, he's going to throw the flag. So he had this to say about the refereeing and officiating. Quote, "It's mind-blowing the things that are getting called, the positions we get put in. We just got to learn to fight the adversity and know it's a lot of BS. It's football plays, but it's the world we live in. We got the star on the helmet." Close quote. Right, so my question to you. Is this now the built-in go-to excuse every time a team takes an L?
When it comes to the Cowboys, maybe. That's probably it's common excuse to point the finger elsewhere. So that's probably the best way I could answer that one without trying to talk and spending too much time on the Cowboys.
No, I can understand because he doesn't want to see this. And I don't either.
Thank you so much because I was literally a millisecond away from clicking.
Delete! 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 Delete!
I thought you would be.
But you beat me to the dumpster, Pelican.
Yes, exactly. Bravo, sir.
Who's giving them the business?
So now we are 2 weeks away from the end of the NFL regular season, and we have teams that are jockeying for positions. Now, of course, you have the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Lions all at 11-4. 2 of those 3 teams clinching their divisions. The Eagles yet to clinch, but the Lions and Niners, they've already clinched their divisions. And of course, the Niners are 1, the Eagles are 2, and the Lions are 3. You of course have the Buccaneers, who are the 4th seed, but they're at 8-7. The Cowboys at 10-5 are the number 5 seed at the moment. Now we have 2 teams at 8-7, 2 NFC West teams, the Rams and then the Seahawks. And then you have the Vikings, the Falcons, the Packers, and the Saints all at 7-8. So my question to you is, in the NFC, can the Rams or Seahawks be caught by the Vikings, Falcons, Saints, or Packers? And if they can, which team would?
I think that they can be caught by them. It's just the Vikings are too suspect because they're on like their 17th string quarterback. Okay. I can't go with them. The Falcons, with the inconsistencies at the quarterback position, the inconsistencies at Artie Smith being the head coach of the Falcons, I cannot go with them. The Saints have also been another team that's been inconsistent throughout this year that I would not place a bet on DraftKings, FanDuel, or whatever it may be for them to even get a win on a weekly basis, regardless if they do even come through with the victory on that given week or not. I would say out of the 4 teams that you have right here, the best shot would be the Packers. And even though it wasn't a very abysmal game this past weekend with playing against the Panthers and barely squeaking one out with a field goal victory pretty much, I have to give it to them as, minus Aaron Rodgers and a few other pieces that left this past offseason. They are a younger team, but they still have a lot of pieces that were a part of the success that Aaron Rodgers had in this past year, but the previous 2 years before that when he won back-to-back MVPs. So it wasn't all Aaron Rodgers that got the MVP. An MVP to me is the overall team award, even though he had a person that had a lot of success from it. It wouldn't have been for the other 10 people around you on that side. That would be your numbers wouldn't produced as well had it not been for the other 10 pieces around you on offense. Or if you are lucky to get a defensive MVP, which we haven't seen since LT. So when you think about all that, it's not even though it is individual stats that's getting you the award, you wouldn't have those individual stats if it wasn't for the other 10 people around you. So when I think about that, and I say that given the fact of this team has still got some Aaron Rodgers DNA all over it, regardless if he's with the team or not, I feel like the Packers, out of those other 4 teams that we have listed there that we just went the rundown through, between the Vikings, the Falcons, the Saints, and the Packers, if any one of those teams is going to do it and actually step on over the Rams or the Seahawks, it's going to be the Packers.
I think the Packers have the best shot. I believe the Vikings have the easier road of all of them, and I say that because, well, they already have a game in hand against the Packers, and of course we'll talk about that matchup later. And they finish on the road in Detroit. Detroit, I don't think will have much to play for. I don't think they will have the number 1 seed to play for, because let's be honest, the Eagles play the Cardinals, the 49ers play the Commanders. I don't see either one of those teams losing to their respective respective opponents. I don't see that happening. So I don't think the Lions would be even coming close to having the number 1 seed to play for. If you had that dangling in front of them, then I could see that being tougher. Since I don't think they'll have that to play for, I could see them resting a few players. So to me, it makes the road for the Vikings easier. Do I think they will do it? There's a person I want to see. Oh yeah.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
What? Nah, I don't see it. Don't see it. But yeah, but I agree with you. I think the Packers are the most equipped team to go there, but we shall see. I know the Rams, their last game is against the 49ers, and they may actually have to play everybody to sew up the number 1 seed. And as for the Seahawks, they do play the Steelers, and then they finish against the Cardinals. So
I just can't get all that hype on the Vikings, considering we've been talking about how easy their schedule's been since they brought in Captain NASA. Okay. And look at where they're at now. We could say, oh yeah, they still have an easier schedule with 2 weeks left. But by this point, with all the hype that they had bringing in Captain NASA, they should have clinched the division already. Captain NASA.
Hey. Who's giving them the business?
Joshua Dobbs stars in Captain NASA. That's a good one. Take a bow, sir. That's a good one. So we talked about the NFC. All right. So in the AFC.
Hang on. If you like Captain NASA, please do us both a favor, no matter what platform you're watching on right now. Click that like button. Help us out, because the more likes we get, the higher we move up in the algorithm. Click that like button if you like Captain NASA.
Well, Justin, and what's up, my brother? In the PSF app, he says, look, we're on Niners Fraud Watch. And I think we are from the standpoint of if you're a team that can punch the 49ers in the mouth running the ball. We've seen this now with the Cardinals. Defensively, you can punch them in the mouth. This week was offense. So, yeah, I agree. But in the AFC, so of course we talked about basically the clash of the Titans, so to speak. The Ravens, who have the number 1 seed, the Dolphins, the number 2 seed, both the clinch playoff spots, but each have not clinched their divisions. Whoever wins their game will clinch their respective division. You have the Chiefs. If they win, they clinch the AFC West. You have the Jaguars, who are trying to hold off 2 other 8-7 teams at 8-7 themselves, but they hold the tiebreaker over both the Texans and the Colts. They swept the Colts, and they have a better division record than the Texans do. And I think they also have a better conference record than they do as well. The Browns at 10-5, they're holding on to the slimmest of chances and hope that they can catch the Ravens for the AFC North crown. I don't think they will. The Bills at 96, they're praying that the Ravens beat the Dolphins so that the AFC East is still in play when they go to South Beach. Then you have the Colts, the Texans, the Steelers, and the Bengals all at 8-7. And you can throw in the Raiders and the Broncos, who are in the AFC West at 7-8. Now, the Broncos are the Colts are the only team that actually would qualify for playoffs in the season where they end right now. But the question I have for you, which AFC team that is 8-7 currently, and that would be the Colts, Texans, Steelers, Bengals, and heck, you even throw in the Jaguars too, will make the playoffs?
Before I answer that question, what is the latest on CJ Stroud? Because I did this 2 weeks in a row. I've forgotten to look this up before we got on the show. What is his status as of right now?
All right. All signs, I think, are pointing that he will return, but they're taking it day by day. But yeah, I agree. I think it hinges on him returning. I agree with you.
Now, based on the way the schedule pans out, I mean, we only got 2 weeks left.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the schedule, I'm already going to say no on the Steelers because of what we've seen from them throughout the course of this year. The fact we've heard about how their culture is toxic in the locker room, how they're going to have to make changes this offseason. Despite what they did this past weekend, you still have to play the Seahawks, who are still a very good team this weekend. And you have to follow that up with your final game with the Ravens. So you play 2 tough teams these last 2 weeks. I don't think the Steelers get it done.
I agree.
When it comes to the Bengals in a very similar situation. You have the Chiefs this weekend, who are not the same team that they once were, but they're still a tough team. And then you host the Browns at home the following weekend. So between those 2 teams right there, the fact of what Jake Browning did this past weekend, I don't have the Bengals either. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the Steelers and the Bengals from that list. The Jaguars, we already talked enough about earlier, and with the red flags there, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate them without going into too much discussion on it, just because of what we talked about earlier with them.
Yeah,
that leaves us with 2 teams. It leaves us with the Colts and the Texans, and the Texans play the Titans. I host them this upcoming weekend, and depending on what's going on with CJ Stroud, I'm just not feeling that high on that. And the Colts have to host the Raiders at home this upcoming weekend, which we've already known what the Raiders have done. And I've predicted the Raiders to win this upcoming week. So when it comes to that, the week 18 matchup is going to matter the most. It's going to come down to the week 18 matchup between the Texans and the Colts. If CJ Stroud is back in week 18, I'm going to go ahead and just give it to the Texans if he is back in week 18. If he is not back in week 18, and the Colts find a way to reestablish that running game to where Uncle Joe isn't throwing 40 and 50 passes in a game,
I would like that coach chance better too.
Yeah, I would give the Colts a better chance to lock this thing up at that point. But there's too many question marks that we will get answers between the next 7 to 10 days on the health of CJ Stroud, from what it sounds like from what you're telling me.
Yeah.
So within the next 7 to 10 days, I think by next week, we should recycle this question for next week's episode.
We probably will.
And I think that would be best because it's a very good question, but there's too many what ifs in the air right now that we can't. That I really can't give you the definitive for today. If this was today,
yeah,
CJ Stroud not playing, I'm going to go with the Colts when I narrow it down to those two teams. CJ Stroud plays Week 18. I'm going with the Texans.
I like how you're thinking. I do, and that's pretty much how I'm thinking. And Bleacher Report has reported a couple of days back that he could return. They use could, or reportedly may return for Sunday's game against the Titans at home. But yeah, the Colts have, I won't say the easiest road, but the Colts have the most comfortable road.
Mm-hmm.
They host the Raiders and they host the Texans to end the season. The Texans, like you said, they host the Titans and they go to Indy. The Steelers have the toughest road because they go to Seattle and then they go to Baltimore.
You know that's gonna be. I had to.
I know. And if the Browns win and the Ravens lose, you pretty much know that will definitely eliminate the Steelers because the Ravens will have something to play for, other than just wanting to just beat down the Steelers and probably give back the win that they gave away in the catch-up battle. And yes, the Bengals at Arrowhead and then at home against the Browns. Oh gosh, two really tough defenses. Of course, the Browns are much tougher than the Bears, but the Chiefs are pretty good themselves. Yeah, and then doing it without Joe Burrow. Woo, yeah. And the Jags, I mean, they had the easiest game of all of them. I mean, heck, they host the Panthers, and then they go to Nashville. But yeah, I think it all depends on CJ Stroud, and I love how you answer that question, and I think that's how I would look at it too. CJ Stroud's in, especially both games. Texans, if he's not. Definitely he's not in for Week 18 is the Colts. I agree with you. And I would even go so far as to say the Colts, if CJ Stroud's out, the Colts will win the AFC South. I'll go that far. But yeah, we will revisit it next week because the AFC picture, even though the AFC picture is really interesting, but the AFC picture is extremely interesting. I mean, come on now. All you had to do, Falcons and Saints, is just actually act as though you wanted to have the NFC South. I'm sorry, my bad. Let me get off the soapbox.
Total Football Talk.
Tis the season to be jolly, and tis the season they give out another snowflake of the week. Gosh, I love that. And for his snowflake, Drew, the floor is yours.
You know, there were multiple options, and more options than in most, of someone that I could have gone with for my snowflake of the week this week. Had he played the entirety of the game this past weekend, I would have given it to Sam Howell. Had he played the entirety of the game, because he was 6 of 22 for 56 yards and 2 interceptions when he was out of the game. So had he played the entire game, I'd give it to him, but he was out pretty early, and Jacoby Brissett played the majority of the second half of the Commanders, which is why they came back and almost won the game had it not been for the leg of the field goal kicker on the other side for the Jets to get that victory. For someone who played the majority of the game up until the fourth quarter for this team, a team that has been very hyped up, a team that a lot of people have been saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. And I've been one of those over the past few weeks that have said that they've turned it around to where I feel like they're Super Bowl favorites. But then after this past weekend, a lot of that went up in smoke. So I'll at least get off that soapbox and say that it's not going to be that. But it's time for this. And why, you ask? Because they completely went off the rails yesterday when it comes to him throwing 4 interceptions, along with his backup adding to the mix to make it a 5th interception for the totality of the quarterbacks yesterday. And for that,
That's terrible.
oh, absolutely. When you look at the play of this quarterback, a man who was definitely in the arguments for the MVP of the season this year, and then you go out there this past weekend, well, yesterday on Christmas, and you drop an egg. You're 18 of 32 for 255 yards. Congratulations, because then you throw 4 interceptions. It almost knocked the camera off the table right there, but because I got so excited, but throws 4 interceptions. Who does that? Oh yeah, Brock Purdy does that. That's who is my snowflake of the week. Why? Because all of this hype of Brock Purdy doing a great job for you 49ers, and I hope you fans got humbled out there too. I gotta be careful with this camera right here, but when it comes to this situation, Brock Purdy, you are my snowflake of the week, Mr. 4 interceptions. Team throws 5 because Sam Darnold added an extra 1. That's my MVP of the snowflakes of the week.
Oh my goodness. I knew where you were going as soon as you talked about the fan base hyping the team up. I'm like, oh Lord. He's going to select Purdy, which good choice, by the way. Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. Who can I select? I mean, I could talk about Sam Howell, but I'm not. He gets off easily. Let me see. I could talk about that Titans offensive line giving up 6 sacks to the Seahawks, but nah. I'm going to the game where I awarded the dog of the week or the grand champ. I'm going to the same game to give the snowflakes of the week, and that would be the Houston Texans secondary. Yes, my team, and I'm calling them out.
Oh!
You are NFL caliber. I'm not saying that Amari Cooper isn't that stud. He's an absolute stud. Has been for years. He now is a quarterback that believes in him. So, yeah, kudos to them. You are not supposed to give up 265 yards to a wide receiver ever. You barely supposed to give that up in 2 games if you play them in a season. If the Browns were a divisional rival, you gave up 265 yards to a receiver in 4 quarters. Maybe not even 4, probably 3. You gave up 265 yards in probably 3 quarters of some change. No. And yes, Dale Sting, he got an interception. I'm happy that you got one. And I think they have, and there was another corner that got an interception, but I'm sorry. You got roasted and toasted. That should not happen. Come on now. You get paid NFL bucks. You should not be roadkill for offense coordinators, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. And if that's the case, you might as well be looking forward to Ryan Tannehill leading your lunch, which I laugh at that thought, but it's quite possible. And then after him, Gardner Minshew probably throwing over 300 yards against you. Come on, guys. You got to do better than this. Forget that you're competing possibly for the AFC South crown. Forget that you're competing for the playoffs. You're just competing to compete. And yeah, I could say, well, yeah, it was just a bad game. Nah. Bad games are like the loss that you took at home to the Jaguars. That was a bad game, yes. This was atrocious. This was absolutely horrible. This is dumpster Pelican worthy. 265 yards to a wide receiver who played probably 3 quarters and some change. No. You got to do better. You got to do better. Because that can't go on in 2024. It can't.
I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
The Cincinnati Bengals water boy is my honorable mention because whatever he put into that water for them to get 11 points and for Mr. Browning to throw 3 interceptions, I think that they med-flighted that same water to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, again, didn't have that much great offense either. You have to give an honorable mention to the Cincinnati Bengals water boy.
Mick says, my snowflake of the year is the Washington fan for drinking the Washington Kool-Aid.
I never drank the Kool-Aid. I've been 100% factual on that team all year long. And you know what, Mick? Since you want to bring that up, I'll even bring this up for you. This Thursday, you can find the special edition for the Commanders Gridiron Report this Thursday at 1:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Since Christmas was yesterday, I'm going to give it to you on Thursday at 1:35 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll see who's been drinking the mother, father, and Kool-Aid. And it definitely hasn't been me. It's been the Cincinnati Bengal players, which is why they only put up 11 points this past weekend.
Oh, good Lord.
The 2-minute drill is next. This is Total Football Talk. Hey, Eagles fan. Join my man Cool McCain and a host of others as they break down every single game, every single week in an objective manner, and also from a fan's perspective as well. Remember, this cast feels just like you. Nobody likes you. And you don't care. Fly, Eagles, fly. Eagles Elite Podcast. Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on YouTube and other podcast outlets. Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commander's Gridiron Report. You want your Commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commander's Gridiron Report. Every Monday at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 2:05 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J. Cool.
Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side.
Join the transporter to Hades.
Your butt and gut becomes one.
Join the reformer of hooker whores.
This is my daughter, Placenta Booty Johnson.
Join the bronze god.
Whenever you are in distress, take off your baseball cap and throw it in the air.
Join your very own superhero of broadcasting, Chris Bass.
So whatever color crayon they get, they palm it and do 2 circles, and that translates to, I can be the black people.
As she takes you through the week's paces in Baseline. Live every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, Pacific Time Zone people, just stay asleep when this is on live and just catch the recording. Oh, I'm sorry. Exclusively on the Chris Bass YouTube channel.
And now we're at the home stretch of Total Football Talk with Drew Willingham. I'm Cole Johnson. And to the chat we go, Victor Locke or VLOG83 or Vicala. He says, good afternoon to the EP of all EPs, Cole Johnson, and the Big Game Hunter Dumpster Pelicans worldwide. Sensei Drew Willingham.
Acknowledge me.
Merry belated Christmas to you both, and a merry belated Christmas to you too, Victor. I hope Chicago is serving you well, brother. And of course, Mick is saying the same to you, as you caught in the chat yourself, sir. Our brother, my mentality brother, and the one who sat across from one Mr. Drew Willingham in the latest D. Willing Eating episode, Why is it Jefe? He says, "Hello, my brothers," and he was laughing at us in awarding. Oh no, he's probably laughing at you for clowning 49ers fan.
Yeah, it was around that time, and again, shouts to Wise El Jefe for being on the season finale of D Willie in the evening. As I do have a special. Based on that commercial that we just saw in that commercial break from Chris Bass, I am not bringing back D Willie in the evening until Cole Johnson and I can collectively put something together like that, because that commercial is mother, father, and awesome. And D Willie in the evening does have a decent Christmas tree cake one, but it is nothing in comparison to that Chris Bass one. And because of the shenanigans of that show, it deserves a commercial like that. So, for those of you that are like, when is the show coming back? It is not coming back until Cole Johnson and I can collectively come together to put something together like that Chris Bass commercial. So do not hold your breath. It will be back in 2024. But whenever we can find the time to put it together, that is going to be it for.
Delete! 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 Delete!
What?
People do like that commercial.
I love that commercial.
Thank you.
What's that? The booty? It is the emphasis on the booty. I love it.
Oh my goodness. So Wise says his snowflake of the week is Trevor Lawrence. That right shoulder probably will agree with you on that, sir. And he says yep on the appearance on D Will in the evening. And VLock83, he says my snowflake of not just this week but of every week is Tyrese Cisco McKnight of the Moronic Republic Cowboys Nation. Now, who is Tyrese Cisco McKnight?
Please don't.
It is this person.
Hey! Ain't nobody care. Who cares? Ain't nobody care.
You're gonna get this anyway.
Let me talk to you.
Absolutely, because all they're gonna get is.
That's terrible.
But thank you for coming up with a name for the guy, Victor. I love it. Mickey says, "Oh, I hear it's a new show for you, Drew, and Will the Dumpster Fire." Oh Lord, why?
I mean, there's other teams out there that are worse off than that team. Just because your team got the victory on them, Mick, you obviously need to
stop it. Get some help.
Wise. Throw in a family member that's about to say, look, scratch that. Marvin Otero, a cousin of his, my snowflake of the week. Well, but wait a minute. The Cowboys lost, though, bro. How is he snowflake week anyway?
Yeah. So when it comes to that,
We gotta pause that.
cut him some slack, bro.
I could already hear him say, I'm cutting him the slack. I have to hear about that Cowboys crap all the time. Oh my gosh. Keep the comments coming. We love you guys. You are awesome. Oh my gosh. Y'all use the energy of this show, and we appreciate you. All of you.
I even said all that with a tear in my eye. Like, literally, because I laughed so hard.
Why is this? He said that because his cousin ain't talking now. Oh my god!
It sounds like Wise is like this.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh.
Well, I mean, heck, your two. 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2
I agree with Mick.
Back to back. We'll do it for you. And Mick says the Giants are his snowflake of the year. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Followed by
You can't handle the truth.
Not
the
need to have.
Commanders are actually worse.
I did not need to have wise spit nails at all of you because you're dissing the Giants hard. Lord have mercy. Although
Commies are worse. So I'll at least acknowledge that.
oh my. So now we're at the 2-minute drill. We deal with the best of the rest in week 17 of the 2020 NFL season. Oh my gosh, can't believe we're this far into the season and we're only 2 weeks away from the playoffs. Man. And we get to, oh gosh. All right, Sunday at 1. No, sorry, not Sunday at 1. Thursday night game. The Browns hosting the Jets.
Stop it. Get some help.
I know the schedule makers were thinking that we was going to have Aaron Rodgers play, and this was actually going to be probably a good game, and probably the Jets was going to clean up on the Browns, but it's going to be the opposite. Oh, good Lord. So the Browns are favored by a touchdown and an extra point, and the 10-5 Browns are playing the 6-9 Jets. Who do you have in this game, sir?
Ever since the fourth play of the season, the Jets' entire season has been and even though the offense with the quarterback position shuffling around different quarterbacks for the Browns has been in similar aspects until Joe Flacco was found from the couch potato that he was to the practice squad to now playing, you have to give it to them, and you have to give it to the Cleveland Browns defense. And for that, I think that's going to what's matter in this game against the Jets. The Jets are going to fall to 6-10. The Browns will rise to 11-5 and get one step closer to making noise in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, and congratulations to the Browns. And probably with that win, they'll probably give them they'll probably have them clinch a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing that at 10-5 they still haven't yet, but yes, more than likely they win this game. They're in the playoffs. No, not more likely. They win this game, they are in the playoffs. The Bills at 9-6, they host the Patriots at 4-11. Even Vegas is saying that this is a dumpster Pelican game because the Bills are favored by 12. 1 p.m. kickoff is when they're going to get this started. Who do you have in this game in Western New York?
Even though the Patriots definitely pulled one out this past weekend for an upset, I don't think they're going to be able to make it 2 weekends in a row. I think they're going to fall to 4-12. The Buffalo Bills will rise to 10-6. Definitely, something we didn't see around the time that they fired their offensive coordinator, but definitely good on them for being able to bounce back and have somewhat of a springboard into the season for the Bills to have a positive record and a positive note they'll end on. 10-6 for the Bills is what they'll be at the end of this week. Patriots fall to 4-12, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if things fall the way they would like if the Colts lose and Texas lose, and maybe a couple other teams do too, that means the Bills would clinch a playoff spot too if they were to win as well. With Mick's comment, Wyatt says, "Look, you won't get an argument out of B Mick." And Mick says, "Look, I think the Giants and Commanders should play to see who will get the burning floating dumpster fire treatment."
We've already seen that twice this year.
The Giants and the Commanders for the.
But we've already seen that twice this year, Mick. And the Giants have won twice. So, with that being said, the ultimate dumpster Pelican award goes to the Commanders this year. I already took my hat off. I acknowledged all this last week on D. Willie in the evening with Wise LFA. I apologized. I admitted I was wrong. It wasn't for the fairness of fun, but I was right the first 6 weeks of the season. In all fairness,
you were right for the first 6 weeks of the season. Of course, you had to get that dig in there.
I was only wrong for 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. So another 1 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. The Bears are favored by 3. They're 6-9, and they host the 7-8 Falcons. Of course, the Falcons need this game to stay on pace for the NFC South crown. The Bears just are playing out the string, even though, yes, their playoff hopes are slim, but still alive. Who do you have in this game?
Even though the Falcons got that win this past weekend, Taylor Heineke did what he needed to do to step it up and get them one step closer to potentially getting to 500 at this point in the year. I think the Chicago Bears defensive front is going to make some noise with Montez Sweat. Definitely been doing the things he's been doing since he's been acquired from the Commanders to this Bears team. Bears definitely not making a playoff push, but they can end the thoughts of the Falcons doing the same. I think the Falcons fall to 7-9. Artie Smith gets one step closer to being shown the door, and the Bears improve to 7-9, and they'll both have the same record by the time this game falls to zeros.
Yeah. After all, they're praying for the Panthers to still tank some more so they can own the number 1 overall draft pick in 4 months' time. But Bears fan, your organization, you already know what they are. The Giants host the Rams, and yes, Wise, the Giants. You can pick whichever dumpster pelican you'd like. That might be the offensive line that we're seeing on the whole doggone trail. The 5-10 Giants, they are hosting the 8-7 Rams. Kickoff again is at 1 p.m. in the Meadowlands. The Rams are favored by 6.5. Who do you have in this game, sir?
You know, it depends. If they start Tyrod Taylor and he starts up the gate coming in like he did in relief this past weekend, I think the Giants have a good chance to win this weekend and knock the Rams down to 8-8. The Giants have definitely proven that they are a team that's better than what their record is. They just don't have stability at the quarterback position. The best overall offensive line, which Wise and I have talked about that before, and all that affects the decision making. And DeVito is a rookie, so he can definitely make those young mistakes, which we saw this past weekend. So when I look at that, I have to think that the Giants have a good chance, but there's so many question marks on if they'll start the game out hot. Tyrod Taylor has historically, no matter what team he's been on, for some reason, been a better player when he comes in for a relief than when he starts. So with all that being said, there's so many question marks, and based on the way the Rams have bounced back this year, I think I have to agree with the general consensus and go with the Rams in this game.
Yeah. And I see the Rams too. I don't think the Giants really have anything for them. That's unfortunate because I think the Rams need to be tested. They won't be in this game. Hopefully they actually play as if they're interested in actually winning the game and they actually have a playoff spot on the line. The Eagles. They're hosting the Cardinals.
Come on, Cole. You're not hype about him for this.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Bird versus bird.
The Buccaneers, they host the Saints. Come on, the Eagles are favored by 12, and you got Kyler Murray who wanted to play Call of Duty, and you got you have a disinterested Eagles team that could call their number and win the game.
They got a couple scrub wins since Call of Duty came back.
No, that's true. They have. You're correct there.
A couple scrubbish, but yes, I'm going with the Eagles too. Let's not put too much time in this game.
Right, exactly. Thank you. Now, in a game that could, and I think more than likely will, decide the NFC South, the Bucks at 8-7. They're hosting the Saints at 7-8. Of course, the Bucks already have a game in hand in beating the Saints in the Superdome. Superdome, not Silverdome. Hulk Hogan. The Bucks are favored by a field goal. Of course, this kickoff is at 1 p.m. Who do you have in this game, sir?
A lot better of a contest than the last game that we were joking around about, but still, the Saints have had an underwhelming year. The Buccaneers have been back and forth with the absence of one Thomas Edward Patrick Brady II. And, even though Cole wants to say junior, when it comes to this situation right here, I have to give it to Bunker Stayfield. I feel like they get this home victory, improve to 9-7. The Saints fall to 7-9 for their underwhelming season, and I have to give it to Bunker Stayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this upcoming week.
Well, if Baker doesn't bunker it up, we are looking at a back-to-back NFC South champion Buccaneers. And I think that's what we're looking at, because the Saints just play too up and down, and they can ill afford to play up and down, and they can afford to play inconsistent, and they can ill afford to have a bad moment against a team that is actually focused, such as the Bucs. So I think the Bucs will win the game, and they'll in fact win the division. The Commanders. I don't know what's worse, the team or the stadium which they call home. They host the San Francisco 49ers at 11-4. The 49ers are favored by 13.5. Who do you have, sir?
Coming in from our production assistant here, Commanders, in retaliation for getting smacked in the mouth last night. That is my pick. The Commanders will suck. They will continue to suck, and they will lose very decisively for this. Now back to you, Cole.
Oh my gosh, you are such. Good Lord. Just all right.
Minus the racist comments that he made.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
we must backtrack
stuff.
that one right there.
Minus the racy stuff that he would say. Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but still, you get a
Stop it. Get some help.
Hey, I'll take that over. As well as you will never be able to say that my takes reflect the third dumpster pelican in the back right there, sitting on top of the food line bag that I've not had a chance to mention throughout the entirety of this show yet, and go in-depth analysis of which and however dumpster pelican they are.
Why the third? Reflect on the third dumpster pelican.
You know me, I like to pick random numbers. I'll even put a 0.8 at the end of it sometimes. Like
that's why I love you. Oh my God. So we have the Jags and the Panthers. Jaguars are picked by they're favored by a touchdown. 1 p.m. It's kickoff on Sunday. You can pick whichever dumpster pelican you'd like. All would be fair game. And speaking of fair game, who do you have in this fair game?
I want to say the Jaguars, but based on how they've been playing, it could go either way. But I think the Panthers will continue to tank to help out the Bears. So let's go with the Jags in this game.
I agree. I think the Jags will probably take it. Of course, I'm rooting for the Panthers, but I don't think they will. Only they'll get the W. All right, the Texans at 8-7. They host the Titans at 5-10. Of course, they beat the Titans this past Sunday, the Sunday before last, wearing those wonderful Oilers uniforms and eliminated for the playoffs. I'm sorry. The Texans are favored by 3.5. Who do you have on this one, sir?
Ryan Tannehill starts. Doesn't matter who the Texans have. I feel like the Texans can win. And I hope the CJ Stroud comes back. But the Texans really need this win. I'm going with the Texans in this game.
Yeah, I am too. And I 100% agree with you. If Tannehill starts, I don't care who is under center. The Texans could beat the Titans. But yeah, I'm hoping that CJ Stroud can come back. I would love to see him come back because that team, even defensively, plays better with him under center. A game that I did not feature, or we did not feature as game of the week or a featured attraction, simply because of one of the teams that we would have to feature. The Seahawks at 8-7, they host the Steelers at 8-7. The Seahawks are favored by 3.5. This is a 4:05 kick, 1:05 on the West Coast. And the reason why is because the Steelers are Who do you have in this game?
Well, with the Steelers, yes, very much so. They are a fraudulent team behind a fraudulent record. With them being 8-7, definitely not the same team as their counterpart, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks have been climbing and clawing their way back to get to this record. They are at 8-7. The Steelers are pretty much 8-7 by default. With that being said, I'm going to pick the Seahawks, and they're going to have a decisive victory. Not as decisive what the Steelers had over the Bengals, because the Bengals had contaminated water by the water boys, what I'm going with. But when it comes to this situation right here, I feel like the Steelers lose, and they lose with that pretty decisively.
I never thought that L would get such traction, but it has. I think the Seahawks are, to me, if they were even playing this game in Pittsburgh, I probably would pick the Seahawks. But this is in Seattle. The Seahawks are a better team at home, obviously, than on the road. And yes, I don't see the Steelers. I don't care if it's Rudolph. I don't care if it's Trubisky. I don't even care if it's Pickett that's on the center. I just don't see them doing anything against the Seahawks. Although both teams need this game, I think the Seahawks are in a better position to win it. The Broncos, who they need any type of help they can get, they're at 7-8. They're favored at 5.5 at home. In their final home game of 2023, they're going up against the Chargers at 5-10. Kickoff is at 4:25 Eastern, 2:25 in Denver. Who do you have in this game, sir?
Ever since old Staley heard the word, Chargers have been playing a little bit better. We've seen some positive flashes from them, but I still don't think it's going to be enough this weekend against the Denver Broncos. So, yeah, we saw some slippage from the Broncos this past weekend, but I think they're going to learn from that, especially being at home and know how the altitudes work in their favor because of their experience being at home. I think the Broncos take this one pretty decisively over the Chargers.
Agreed. I think that I love what the Chargers have looked like the last couple of weeks. They're actually interested in wanting to run the ball, so I'm happy about that. And I got to give it to Easton Stick. He actually has done good in relief of Justin Herbert. They just don't have enough. And the Broncos barely have just enough. And I think they'll go to 8-8. Sunday night affair. I'm sorry, Sunday evening affair, I should say, because the kick is at 4:25. I'm sorry. The Chiefs at 96. They host, I guess you could say they're probably their, I won't say most heated rival, but probably their most contentious rival in the Bengals at 8-7. Both teams are not looking the way that they've had the last couple of years. The Chiefs, though, are favored by 8 points. And of course, the Chiefs win, they clinch the AFC West. And if the Bengals win, they might put themselves in position for a playoff spot. Who do you have, sir?
As long as the Bengals fired the water boy from this past weekend, they got a pretty decent shot of pulling this one out this next weekend. But I think the Chiefs are going to be pretty mad based on how they lost this past weekend to the Raiders by getting literally popped in the mouth. All jokes aside, I feel like the Chiefs do take this game at least by 10 points.
I don't really like the Bengals' chances here. I want to like it. I don't. The only way that I would actually like it better is, unfortunately, and I'm not rooting for it or predicting it. You would have to have some big cog on the offense get injured for the Chiefs. That's the only way I can see the Bengals winning this game. Now, if Burrow was in there, I'd say the Bengals have a really good chance of winning the game. But since Browning is in there and he's done okay, he did slip this past Saturday. I don't see him rebounding in this one. The Chiefs have more to play for, and I think they will clinch the AFC West, and then they will also, by an extra motivating factor, eliminate the Bengals from the playoffs in doing so. So I think that will sort of stoke the fires a bit for the Chiefs. And then we get to the Sunday night game. Again, there is not a Monday game for this nor next week. It is an 8:20 kick between the Vikings at 7-8 and the Packers at 7-8. The Vikings are favored by 2, but who do you have in this game?
I think this game should be the 8 o'clock game over the Bengals and the Chiefs, because I think the Chiefs are going to win it a little bit more decisively. And because of how much this game right here impacts the division, I feel like that this should be the game that we should see in the primetime slot at 8:15. But, I know the Vikings are, favored to win this game here, but I have to disagree, especially given the fact of if Mullins plays and throws 4 interceptions again, even though the Vikings were pretty close in that game, had he not thrown his interceptions, they more than likely would have won last week's game. I just have a feeling the Packers are on the right momentum shift in the positive direction, and I have to give it to the Packers in this week. I'm going to call the upset in this one.
Okay. So you have the Packers. I can see the Packers winning it. I think they're playing a little better. The Vikings, I just think they don't know which way is up, literally. I think you said it. With Cousins' injury and having to deal with a myriad of QBs, Captain NASA. Having Joshua Dobbs being one of them, now Nick Mullins being the guy that actually can get the ball downfield, but unfortunately he also can throw it to the opposite jersey. I think the Packers will probably take it too. Well, that concludes the 2-minute drill.
Total football talk.
As long as it's one. Oh, that's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
Wrap up what our thoughts are for the week that was, and for his thoughts on week 16 of the NFL season 2023. The floor is Drew's.
Guys, with what we saw this past week, we saw a variety of different things. We saw the Saints, fall apart there against the Rams. Well, they were losing primarily the majority of the game, so they turned things around later in the second half. We saw the Bengals, who I'm still going with, their water was contaminated. The water boy needs to be fired, and they need to bring somebody else in order to do a better job. Same thing with Jacksonville Jaguars. They're poisoned. That's why they played so bad. That's the only excuse I can come up with why Jake Browning had that steep decline, because we've seen some pretty positive play out of Mr. Browning since he took over the quarterback position since old Burrow went down. It has to be the water. I'm sticking with the water. Now, back to the other teams. Looking at the Chargers, they are still bad, but they still kept it close against a still pretty decent Buffalo Bills team. You look at old Taylor Heineke. Got to be proud of old Taylor Heineke for getting that dub against the Colts. Looking at the Seahawks and the Titans game, the Titans, they deserve to lose because they are the Titans. And those jerseys they keep bringing back from the Houston Oilers, that's your karma right there, losing that game against the Seahawks. Then you look at the Lions game and the Vikings. Got to be excited for the Lions for getting that victory. But again, as I said earlier in this episode, I think it speaks a testament in the fact that, Mullins had 4 interceptions and you still only won by 6 points. Red flags I'm seeing for the Lions going into the final 2 weeks of the season. And you got the Jets and the Commies. Of course, the Commies suck. What? Said it all year long. They suck. What? I have a weekly show on this team that I do on Mondays around 3:30 or 3:05 p.m. Eastern time, but yet they still suck. What? And again, for that plug of that show, you can find it this Thursday because of the holiday week. This Thursday, 2 days from today at 1:35 p.m. Eastern time, on Sertoba Media. Now, back to what we were talking about. Yeah, the Commies still suck. What? Our next team to follow a recap on. Packers, I just really have a really good chance they're going to win this upcoming week based on what they did this past weekend. I know you're probably looking at me like saying, hey, you beat a team that only had 2 wins this season. Well, you still got the win. Still puts you in the position that you're at to where you're only 1 game under 500. I still like the Packers' chances this upcoming weekend. Then probably, again, I called him my dog of the week, going with Joe Flacco. As long as this Browns defense can continue to do the things that they're doing and trend in a positive direction, I have to continue to throw the faith in Joe Flacco coming off the couch, finishing the season strong. I still feel like they have a chance to get to the AFC Championship, even if they only make it to the division round and they still lose. I still think it's a pretty good season considering the fact that you're paying a man a lot of money to not play right now, that being Deshaun Watson. So for what you're getting out of Joe Flacco, you should be happy over there in Cleveland to even be in the conversation at this point. Then you got to look at Tampa Bay, what they did against Jacksonville. I joked around and said they had the same water that they did over there, the Cincinnati Bengals, for that being the Jacksonville Jaguars, only mustering 12 points this past week. But they only mustered 12 points because of the question marks that had definitely been exposed in this past game for the Jacksonville Jaguars that we talked about all year long, and the fact that Bunker Stayfield stepped it up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I have to give him credit where it's due, and I have to lay it all out there for the Buccaneers. We'll see what they do here in these last 2 weeks of the season. Look at the Chicago Bears and the Cardinals. Not much more I'm going to recap from this past week because Kyler Duty, they only have three wins all season, and they are a dumpster fire that's led by Dumpster Pelicans. Then you have the New England Patriots, who barely get one out in a field goal victory over the Broncos, winning 26-23. Russell Wilson has definitely turned things around this past year for the Broncos, as we saw what he did last year, and you got to look at what he's did this year to even have them in the conversation for potentially making the playoffs. Good on the Broncos. They're very close to getting over the hump of the 500 mark, and we'll see what they do with these last 2 weeks of the season. Philadelphia and the Giants this past week. There were some red flags that were definitely mentioned there that we've seen throughout the year with the Giants, okay? Mick says that he has them as the snowflake of the year for his team. As far as the Eagles, though, you got to put some red flags there on they are not the same team they were last year because they were winning pretty decisively until Tyrod Taylor came in. They started giving up points. So, and you could probably say some of you Eagles fans out there will be, well, that was scrub time. It didn't matter. They didn't lose. You still gave up that amount of points to Tyrod Taylor. That's all I'm saying. And then the beat down of the week, the Ravens and the 49ers, as the 49ers threw 5 interceptions between 2 quarterbacks, 4 of them coming from Brock Purdy, the other one coming from Sam Darnold, which is, no surprise. But Brock Purdy's 4 interceptions was a surprise. The worst game of his career, the highest amount of turnovers he's had since college. You got to look at that. And keep that in the back of your mind as you go into the playoffs. Is this something that we could potentially see again? Looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, happy for AP. Antonio Pierce leading that team to a victory over the Chiefs, punching the Chiefs in the mouth to get them to the point to where they were in that victory yesterday and get them one step closer to making some major upsets for the season past this week alone. It was the upset of the week, but there could be some upsets this season from the hands of the Raiders. And lastly, the game of the week is the Dolphins beat the Cowboys 22-20. Very happy to see the Cowboys lose. You will never hear me say otherwise.
Yeah.
And if you would like to leave in the comments your vote to never see that Cisco Man sing that Cowboy song again, I will support your message.
What?
Said I will support your message.
What?
I will wholeheartedly support that
message. What?
I can't tell you how grateful I would be to never see that in our lineup again.
You can't handle the truth.
I definitely can't handle the truth. I cannot handle the truth every time Cole clicks that button because every time he does, I just want to see this right behind.
Delete.
And we, for the last time in this episode, last week we went to 4 hours. This week we have met the goal and done this beautifully. Couldn't have done it without my man Cole Johnson. I know I've rambled on for the past 5 minutes because this is the last part of the show, but got to give the kudos where they're due. Had to recap this past week. Had to obviously come back with the breaking news for saying that the commies still suck because they continue to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But for this 17th edition of Total Football Talk, looking forward to next week. Thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning in. And couldn't do it without you guys, especially without Cole. So thank you, as always, for what you do with us each and every week.
Oh, my gosh. You are too much. You are too much. Lord have mercy. All right. Now, we have heard a lot of talk about MVP candidates and people gushing about certain performances, and then after that guy has the big time performance, they're saying, "Oh, this guy is the MVP front runner." We saw that with Dak, and we saw that with Purdy, and then we saw that with Dak again, and then we saw that with Purdy again, and now we see it with Lamar Jackson. And I just don't believe that people understand what it takes to be an MVP, or at least to award one. Now, I've always said that basically MVP awards, especially in NFL, will go to the quarterback of the team that has the best record, if his season is decent enough. So right now, that would be Lamar Jackson, since there's a team that has 12 wins other than him, other than the Ravens, and he's been a difference maker on this team. But I don't think we've seen the, oh my gosh, this has to be the guy. Maybe for the exception of Christian McCaffrey. Maybe for that exception. But gosh, you just can't go ham off of, well, this one performance is why these should be the MVP, because you need to have the whole body of work to literally decipher who is worthy of the most valuable player award. The body of work has to be extensive, not in a capsule of 4 quarters or 4 quarters in an overtime period. Do I believe that Lamar Jackson's MVP? I really don't. But I can see him winning it for a second time. Is there a front runner that pretty much is a lock solid stone cold pick? No. Is there one that I think is going to get hosed? Yes. And that would be McCaffrey, simply because I think the NFL does not want to really award running backs anything, because they want to treat them like, I hate to say it, they want to treat them like janitors. And unfortunately, they're being treated like janitors right now. Ultimately, it isn't about who is game managers. It isn't about who is system QBs, because let's be completely forthright. Just about every QB you see is a system quarterback. It just depends on which system they run. So if you're going to value who is going to be the most valuable player, you have to do so with those moments that you can remember, and you can just flash back and say, oh yeah, what he did against this team and what he did in this game. Yeah, this really is a moment. You got to do that. And too few in this year's NFL season has had those, wow, this guy is the guy moments. But it'll be interesting to see when the NFL honors roll around the second Saturday in February. We will know who's going to be the MVP. But until then, we got 2 more weeks to have the media hype up, erroneously I may add, who they think is the front runner, because they want to go with what Vegas is saying. I mean, it literally, the MVP race is literally like this.
Delete! 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 Delete!
And I wish I could say that about the MVP race talk. Unfortunately, we won't. And it's going to get even worse in week 17 and week 18. Really?
As long as it's one. Oh, it's great. I love it. I hope it actually is recording. Listening to it.
All right, sir. Do you have anything else to add before we let our Total Football Talk audience go? Oh, he basically said that the Commanders suck and they.
I did. The mute monster got me once again. But no, guys, one great episode with you all again. I'm still I still can't believe they make something this big with for this huge Kit Kat bar. There's 18 in here, so I'm gonna be sharing this. I cannot eat this whole thing. So between this, it was pretty good Christmas. Hope all of you out there had one great Christmas. I'm trying to play some air guitar with this thing today before I go to work, or it could be like a Red Ryder BB gun. I don't know. I don't know. We've got to be careful. I don't want to be Ralphie, shoot my eye out. But we've had one great addition here. We've only got 2 weeks left in the regular season. We got XFL around the corner too. We got great football heading into this new year. It may only be, well, no, Cole, is this the last episode of 2023?
Yes, it is. Because
It is.
next week will be in January. Yes.
Yes. So 17 episodes, 2023. I guess right before we leave on out here, we have to, as always, you know, we do this when it comes to many things. We
acknowledge me.
We have to acknowledge 17 episodes for the genius in yourself putting together the foundation of the show, building the foundation with the transitions. I know you and I both have to show up and bring our energy and our passion to the topics with it, but we wouldn't be at 17 episodes without you and the genius. So for this, in appreciation for the end of the year, for the 17 episodes that we've done, show appreciation to you, my man, and look forward to what we can do with this show and the platform throughout 2024.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And look, your energy is what makes this show go, and I love the fact that you bring it every time. And Wyatt says, no, you're not long with it, and he says Lamar is his MVP. But basically, he's his MVP because it is especially after beating the 49ers and quieting, I will amend this, and quieting a certain fan.
I mean, and you know what? As I've gone around, it's not just one fan. Okay, there is one fan that we have in mind. Okay, but there are other ones. In every year, when you have a team that does better than years before, there's those bandwagon fans. Cole Johnson, there's those bandwagon fans. I'm in Virginia. Okay, there shouldn't be many San Francisco 49er fans in Virginia. Okay, you have Commander fans. You have Baltimore Raven fans. There's a lot of those fans. Carolina Panthers fans, because we're within those teams. Some Steelers fans. And of course, you got the haters of the Commanders fans, well, the formerly known as Redskins, the Cowboys fans, just because they hate seeing the Commanders on TVs all the time. So those are like the bulk of the teams that we see as fanhoods over here. But other than that, if I see a 49er jacket or a 49er hat or even a Chiefs hat in this area, I know they became a bandwagon fan within the past few years. So those are the ones I really irritate me. And you go into the gas station, pump some gas, whatever. Yeah, but 49ers doing great. Somebody with a country accent on this side of the United States shouldn't be all hyped about 49ers because you never probably have even stepped one foot into California to even be a fan of that team. So how can you be a fan of that team? That's what I'm saying. So for the one that we're thinking of, yes, because there are other platforms where said individual definitely likes to hype them up and then gets humbled. Yes, I get that. But there's plenty of other ones who have never stepped foot into Candlestick Park, whatever, and seen this team. You need to pick a better team. Well, you've already picked a team that's good enough, but bandwagon somewhere else, not in Virginia, not on my watch.
Well, since Candlestick is gone and now they're playing Levi Stadium, I get what you're saying. But yes, I agree with you. I find it funny seeing people who don't have a geographical tie root for teams. And like, I don't get why you're rooting for them. So be it. Unless you came from the city and you moved somewhere else, then I can understand it. But yeah.
Sick. Had you been here a while ago,
at least it didn't mess with Little Debbie.
Yes, and sick. Had you been here a while ago, you would have seen what we talked about with Little Debbie. You got a lot of catching up to do. You're 3 hours late, but at least you made it before the end of the show. Thank you. We love you. Good day, good afternoon, good night to Sick Day.
And speaking of end of the show, if you want to catch Mr. Drew Willingham, here are many of the social media homes he has: Sotoba_media on Twitter or X, _Sotoba on TikTok, and Sotoba Media on YouTube. And if you want to find me, you can go to flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson. That's flowcode.com/page/host Cole Johnson.
You just reminded me of something, Cole.
And that would be?
Let me talk to you.
I said last week that I was going to do something with my time off. Okay, I said I was going to get on that flow code, and I did not. I failed. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I need to
Stop it. Get some help.
but I didn't.
Oh my
I didn't get some help. I didn't reach out to Cole for help on that flow code.
Yeah.
Please don't send me a message saying I'm doing the best I can. Give me some more time, and I'll get on that flow code to make your life easier finding me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Only him. Only him.
Hell, you know I can do these promos all day long.
I know that's the scary part. With little to go on, you could just fire them off. But thank you for liking, thank you for sharing, and look, I love this brother, so I enjoyed this all the time. Thank you for subscribing, thank you for the comments as well, and thank you for hitting the notification bell so you can catch all content that comes from the Surtoba Media YouTube channel or the Kobe Media YouTube channel. For Drew Willingham, I'm Cole Johnson, here to say in parting, as we always do, in life, just like a tackle, keep your head up. And always remember, you got to play until the whistle blows.
And to stay safe out here in these streets.
So long, everybody, and have a happy 2024.